Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 unleashed the Omega Omnitrix and loved Eunice. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Omega Signal. The crystalline spires of the Petrosapian embassy gleamed under Galvan Prime's twin suns, casting prismatic patterns across the negotiation chamber. Ben Tennyson leaned forward in his chair, the weight of 3 civilizations, futures pressing down on his shoulders. 5 years as Earth's interstellar representative had taught him that diplomacy required a different kind of heroism than fighting alien warlords, though he occasionally missed the simplicity of the latter. Ambassador Tennyson, the Petrosapian delegate's voice resonated like polished granite. While we appreciate your mediation efforts, the Tetraman mining claims clearly violate our ancestral crystalline reserves. Across the hexagonal table, the 4-armed Tetraman representative slammed her fist down, sending vibrations through the floor. Those reserves extend into neutral space by your own star charts. The treaties of Koros clearly permit. Perhaps, Ben interjected with practiced calm, we should examine the 3-dimensional mapping data again. The subspace resonance scans the Galvan Science Guild provided suggest the crystal veins might branch in a pattern that would allow shared access without compromising either party's interests. He tapped his wrist, the sleek black and gray Omnitrix projecting a holographic model of the disputed asteroid belt. After countless battles across the universe, the device had become as much a diplomatic tool as a weapon. At 22, Ben had grown into his role as hero in ways his teenage self could never have imagined, measured words often accomplishing what even Homungosaur's strength could not. The delegates leaned in, momentary animosity forgotten as they studied the rotating projection. Ben suppressed a smile. 5 years ago, he'd have transformed and smashed their heads together until they agreed. Growth, he reflected, Samati. Mies meant knowing when not to use the watch. A sharp, unexpected pain lanced through his wrist, causing him to wince. The hologram flickered and distorted, crystalline models warping into unrecognizable patterns before stabilizing again. My apologies, Ben said smoothly, though concern flashed behind his composed facade. The Omnitrix had never malfunctioned during a projection before. As I was saying, if we establish mining operations along these junction points. The pain returned, stronger this time. The Omnitrix's familiar green glow pulsed irregularly, shifting momentarily to a deep indigo hue Ben had never seen before. The hologram collapsed entirely, replaced by a series of alien symbols racing across the projection field. The Petrosapian delegate's crystalline features hardened. Is this some kind of Earth negotiation tactic, Ambassador? Not at all. Ben fought to keep his voice steady as the strange characters continued to scroll through the air. If you'll excuse me for just a moment. He stepped away from the table, turning his back to examine the device. The symbols weren't Galvan script, nor any of the dozen alien languages he'd become familiar with. Yet something about them seemed almost familiar. Like a half-remembered dream. Unusual diplomatic methods, Tennyson. Though I shouldn't be surprised. The familiar voice behind him sent an unexpected jolt through Ben's system. He turned to find himself face to face with a young woman in a sleek white and green uniform, blonde hair framing features that hadn't changed since he'd last seen her 3 years ago. Eunice. The name escaped his lips before diplomatic protocol could reassert itself. What are you doing here? Her green eyes darted to the malfunctioning Omnitrix, concern replacing her initial amusement. We need to talk. Now. She glanced past him to the delegates. Official plumber business. Highest priority. The Galvan facilitator, barely reaching Ben's knee, hopped onto the table. We will reconvene tomorrow at the scheduled time. The guild will prepare additional resonance data for review. As the delegates filed out, Ben turned back to Eunice, suddenly acutely aware of how her presence affected him even after all this time. She'd been created as the Omnitrix, an earlier prototype of the Omnitrix designed to collect and preserve DNA samples, before developing her own consciousness and identity. Their history was complicated. You haven't answered my question, he said, voice softer now that they were alone. Eunice stepped closer, reaching for his wrist. May I? When he nodded, her fingers brushed against his skin as she examined the Omnitrix. The contact sent a different kind of charge through him than the device's malfunction. I've been working with Azimuth in the Andromeda Galaxy. She explained, her focus on the alien watch. 3 days ago, every piece of Galvan technology tied to the Omnitrix network began receiving these same signals. She tapped the face of the device, and the scrolling symbols reappeared. It's called the Omega signal. And if it's active, we're all in serious trouble. Omega signal, Ben repeated. In 5 years wearing this thing. Azimuth never mentioned anything like that. Because it's not supposed to exist. Eunice's expression grew grave. It's a theoretical emergency protocol Azimuth built into the core of the ore. Iginal Omnitrix, a fail-safe that would only activate if reality itself were threatened. Ben had faced universal threats before, but something in Eunice's tone made this feel different. And now it's active, not fully. She stepped back, crossing to the chamber's wide viewport. Beyond the glass, Galvan Prime's technological metropolis sprawled toward the horizon, a marvel of engineering that the Earth's most advanced cities look primitive. The signal is searching, Ben. Testing. Like something is probing the Omnitrix's capabilities from outside normal space-time. Ben joined her at the window, the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders once more. Azimuth sent you to bring me in. A small smile crossed her lips. Actually, I volunteered. When the signal appeared, I knew. She paused, seeming to reconsider her words. I knew you'd need someone who understands both the technology and you. The unspoken history between them hung in the air. Their connection had always been unique, beyond attraction, beyond friendship. The Omnitrix in her responded to the Omnitrix in him on a fundamental level. Well, I'm glad it's you, he admitted. But I need more than cryptic warnings. What exactly are we facing? Before she could answer, the Omnitrix pulsed again. This time, the indigo light spread up Ben's arm like liquid electricity, causing him to stagger. Eunice caught him before he could fall, her touch somehow dampening the sensation. That's new, he gasped when the pulse subsided. It's getting stronger. Worry creased her brow. We need to meet with my contact on Earth. She's been tracking unusual energy patterns that might be connected to the signal. Ben straightened, regaining his composure. Your contact, Elena Validus. The name hit Ben like a physical blow. Elena, last I heard, she was under quarantine after the nanochip incidents. She's changed, Ben. Eunice's gaze was steady. The plumbers have been using her expertise to assure extraterrestrial technology integration on Earth. Her connection to the nanochips gives her unique insights. And you trust her. I trust that she wants to help you. Something in Eunice's too. Nay suggested she knew more about Elena's motivations than she was saying. Her detection systems registered anomalies similar to the Omega signal 2 weeks before we did. That's not coincidence. Ben glanced down at the Omnitrix. The mysterious symbols still scrolling across its surface. 5 years ago, he might have rushed headlong into whatever threat was emerging. Now, he knew better than to ignore the counsel of those he trusted. All right, let me inform the plumber liaison about the negotiation delay, and we can head back to Earth. Eunice nodded, relief evident in her posture. As Ben turned to leave, she caught his arm. Ben, there's something else you should know. The Omega signal, it's changed you too. I can sense it. Your connection to the Omnitrix is evolving. Her words sent a chill through him. Evolving into what? That's what I'm afraid to find out. The journey to Earth aboard the plumber cruiser gave Ben time to process Eunice's revelations. They sat in the ship's observation deck, Earth growing larger in the viewport as they approached. The familiar blue-green sphere had never looked so precious, or so vulnerable. You still haven't told me everything, Ben said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. What exactly makes the Omega signal so dangerous? Eunice turned from the viewport, tucking one leg beneath her on the bench. The posture reminded Ben of simpler days, before the weight of the universe regularly fell on his shoulders. The Omnitrix contains the DNA of nearly every sentient species in the known universe, she explained. Quote, you've always accessed that database sequentially, one transformation at a time. The Omega protocol theoretically removes those limitations. Ben raised an eyebrow. You mean I could turn into multiple aliens at once? Not exactly. More like, the boundaries between you and the Omnitrix would dissolve. No more transformations as we understand them, just a continuous flow of adaptive change. You wouldn't just use alien powers. You'd become a living conduit for the evolutionary potential of all species combined. The concept was simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. That kind of power could change the nature of reality itself, Eunice finished. Which is why Azimuth designed it never to activate except under one condition: an imminent threat to the existential foundation of the universe. Ben stared at the device on his wrist with new appreciation and unease. All these years, and it still held secrets from him. Then why is it activating now? Eunice's gaze drifted back to the approaching Earth. That's what scares me, Ben. Something is coming that threatens everything, not just life, but the fabric of existence itself. The ship's communication system chimed, interrupting the gravity of the moment. The pilot's voice filled the chamber. Ambassador Tennyson, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Plumber headquarters. Patching it through. The viewport shimmered, transitioning into a communication screen. Rook Blanco's familiar face appeared, though his normally composed features were tight with concern. Ben, we have a situation developing in Sector 17B, outside Bellwood. Unusual energy readings unlike anything in our database. Let me guess, Ben replied, strange symbols, maybe an indigo energy signature. Rook's expression confirmed his suspicion. How did you? We're tracking the same phenomenon, Eunice cut in. It's called the Omega signal. We're bringing information now. Then you should hurry. Rook's image flickered as interference washed across the transmission. The anomaly is growing. And Ben, Elena Validus is already on site. She insisted only you could handle this. Ben exchanged a look with Eunice. We'll head there directly. Have a ground transport ready. As the transmission ended, Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse once more. This time, instead of pain, he experienced a moment of crystal clarity, as if suddenly seeing the universe from an entirely new perspective. It passed as quickly as it came, leaving him disoriented. It's accelerating, Eunice said quietly, her eyes on the Omnitrix. The protocol is responding to proximity. Proximity to what? Her answer was lost as the ship shuddered violently, warning klaxons blaring throughout the cabin. The pilot's voice cut through the noise. Ambassador, unknown energy surge detected ahead. The atmospheric entry corridor is destabilizing. Ben was already moving toward the bridge, Eunice close behind. Can we make an emergency landing? Attempting to compensate, but navigation systems are failing. Something is warping local space-time. Through the forward viewport, Ben could see it, a distortion in the atmosphere above Earth, like reality itself was being folded and twisted. The ship bucked again, systems flickering as they fought against forces they weren't designed to withstand. I need to transform, Ben said, reaching for the Omnitrix. XLR-8 or Jetray could. Eunice grabbed his wrist. No, using the Omnitrix now might accelerate the process. We don't know what would happen. The ship lurched sideways, artificial gravity stuttering. Outside, the distortion was growing, tears appearing in the very fabric of space. We may not have a choice, Ben replied grimly. If we crash, the pilot's panicked voice interrupted them. Energy levels spiking. Something's coming through the distortion. Through the shimmering tear in reality, a shape emerged, massive, geometric, impossibly angled. It resembled a city-sized crystal with facets that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could comprehend. Pulses of indigo energy, identical to those the Omnitrix had been emitting, radiated from its core. The Chronarch, Eunice whispered, her face pale. It's already here. Ben had faced countless alien threats, but something about this entity struck a primal chord of fear. This wasn't a being from another world. He felt like something from outside reality itself. The ship's controls failed completely as they entered the anomaly's event horizon. Earth spun dizzyingly below them as they tumbled toward the atmosphere. The heat shield struggling to activate. Brace for impact, the pilot shouted. Ben pulled Eunice close, sheltering her with his body as the craft shuddered around them. The Omnitrix flared brighter than ever, the indigo light enveloping them both. In that moment of contact, something passed between them, a connection deeper than physical touch. Ben felt Eunice's consciousness brush against his own, their thoughts momentarily intertwining. Then reality seemed to fold, the ship vanishing around them. For a breathless instant, they existed in a void where time and space held no meaning. Ben caught glimpses of impossibilities, worlds that never were, futures that might be, pasts that had been erased. With jarring suddenness, solid ground materialized beneath them. They collapsed onto sun-warmed asphalt. The familiar sounds of Earth surrounding them once more. Ben gasped for breath, his senses reeling from the transition. They were in a deserted parking lot outside Bellwood. Nearby, the remains of a plumber barricade surrounded what appeared to be a smaller version of the space-time tear they'd seen in orbit. And standing before it, hands extended as if measuring invisible forces, was Elena Validus. She turned at their arrival, surprise flickering across her features before settling into grim determination. Unlike the unstable, obsessive woman Ben remembered, this Elena moved with precise, controlled motions. The faint metallic sheen beneath her skin suggested the nanochips remained a part of her, but they no longer controlled her actions. Ben Tennyson, she said, voice steady despite the strain evident in her posture. Right on schedule, though your entrance was more dramatic than expected. Ben climbed to his feet, helping Eunice up beside him. Elena, it's been a while. Her dark eyes assessed him coolly before shifting to Eunice. Your theory was correct. The anomaly responds to the Omnitrix signature. Its arrival accelerated the moment you entered Earth's atmosphere. Eunice stepped forward, professional despite the rough landing. Have you been able to analyze its composition? It doesn't have one. Not in conventional terms. Elena gestured to the shimmering tear. It's not matter or energy. It's a discontinuity in reality itself. She turned back to Ben, something softening briefly in her expression. Your watch is the key to understanding it. And possibly closing it before more of those things come through. The mention of those things drew Ben's attention to the plumber agents positioned around the perimeter. Several were attending to what appeared to be casualties. Their injuries unlike anything he'd seen before, limbs frozen in impossible positions, features blurred as if partially erased from existence. What happened here? He demanded. Scout drones. Elena answered, her professional demeanor slipping to reveal genuine fear. They emerged 20 minutes ago. Their touch, it rewrites reality on a quantum level. 3 agents made contact. 2 dissolved completely. The third, she gestured to a trooper whose arms seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, phases of matter blending horrifically. Ben felt sick. He'd seen a lot of disturbing things in his career as a hero, but this was different. And that thing in orbit is sending more. The entity in orbit is just an advance element. Eunice's voice was tight. The chronarch is larger than planets, Ben. What we saw was equivalent to a fingertip testing the water. The implications chilled him. If just a fragment of this chronarch could cause such devastation, what would happen when it fully emerged? I need everything you know, he said to Elena. How did you detect this before even Azimuth knew about it? Something flickered across Elena's face. Hesitation, perhaps guilt. The nanochips within me respond to certain quantum frequencies. About 3 weeks ago, they began resonating with an unknown signal. I traced it to these coordinates, but there was nothing here, at least. Nothing visible to conventional sensors. She led them toward a mobile command unit set up at a safe distance from the anomaly. Inside, holographic displays show WED readings that would have been incomprehensible to anyone without advanced scientific training. I developed these sensors based on the nanochips, resonance patterns, she continued, bringing up a 3-dimensional model. They showed a pocket of compressed space-time forming here, growing slowly at first, then exponentially as it approached critical mass. Eunice studied the displays with practiced ease. The temporal displacement signatures match the omega signal patterns. Whatever this is, the Omnitrix recognized it as an existential threat. Ben examined the readouts, years of expery, allowing him to grasp the essentials if not the technical details. Can we close it? Push whatever's trying to come through back where it came from. Elena and Eunice exchanged a look that Ben couldn't quite interpret. Theoretically, Elena said carefully, a sufficiently powerful energy surge targeted at the anomaly's focal point could collapse the bridge it's forming between dimensions. But we'd need something capable of manipulating fundamental forces on a quantum level. Like the Omnitrix, Ben concluded. Not the Omnitrix as it currently functions, Eunice corrected. But if the Omega Protocol were fully activated. Quote, the weight of their expectation pressed down on Ben. Once again, the fate of everything rested on his shoulders, on his ability to control powers beyond human comprehension. There has to be another way, he insisted. Azimuth wouldn't have made the Omega Protocol a last resort if it weren't dangerous to use. There isn't time for alternatives, Elena countered, gesturing to her displays. The tear is expanding exponentially. Within hours, it will be large enough for the Chronarch to fully manifest. Once that happens, she left the consequence unspoken. The Omnitrix pulsed again, and this time Ben welcomed the sensation, trying to understand what the device was communicating. The scrolling symbols slowed, patterns becoming clearer. Without knowing how, he recognized sequences, meanings forming in his mind. It's not just a warning signal, he said slowly. It's instructions. The Omnitrix is trying to tell me how to activate the protocol. Eunice placed her hand on his arm, her touch grounding him as the symbols raced through his consciousness. Ben, if you do this, there's no guarantee you'll remain, you. The protocol integrates the user and the Omnitrix completely. The line between Ben Tennyson and the device might disappear entirely. The concern in her eyes touched something deep within him. Despite years apart, the connection between them remained undiminished. What choice do I have? He asked softly. If that thing comes through. A thunderous crack interrupted him as the anomaly suddenly expanded, doubling in size within seconds. The command unit's instruments screamed warnings as new energy signatures emerged from the tier. Outside, shapes began to materialize, humanoid figures composed of the same crystalline, geometrically impossible structure as the entity in orbit. Where the scout drones had been mindless, these moved with purpose, advancing toward the plumber barricade. Sentries, Eunice breathed. The Chronarch is securing a foothold. Ben's decision crystallized in an instant. Whether the Omega Protocol was dangerous or not, the threat before them was immediate and catastrophic. Get everyone back, he ordered. Striding toward the exit, establish a perimeter half a mile from the anomaly. No one approaches, no matter what happens. Elena nodded sharply, already relaying commands through her communicator. Eunice, however, caught his arm before he could leave. I'm going with you, she stated, her tone brooking no argument. The Omnitrix in me might help stabilize the transformation. And, she hesitated, then continued with quiet intensity, and I won't let you face this alone. Their eyes met, volumes of unspoken feelings passing between them. After a moment, Ben nodded. Stay close. If something goes wrong, it won't, she said with conviction that belied the fear in her eyes. Together they exited the command unit, facing the advancing crystalline sentries. Already, plumber agents were falling back, their weapons proving ineffective against beings that seemed to exist partially outside normal physics. Where energy blasts made contact, the sentries simply shifted, the affected portions phasing momentarily out of sync with reality before reforming. Any advice before I try this? Ben asked, his eyes on the nearest sentry as it approached with unnervingly fluid movements. Trust the Omnitrix, Eunice replied. It's been part of you for over a decade. Let it guide the process. Ben took a deep breath, centering himself as he had learned to do before difficult transformations. The Omnitrix responded, the indigo light now pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The scrolling symbols aligned into patterns that suddenly made perfect sense, like a language he'd always known but never spoken. Here goes everything, he murmured, and pressed his palm against the Omnitrix's face. The device didn't open as it normally would for a transformation. Instead, it seemed to liquefy, the metal and crystal components flowing like quicksilver up his arm. Ben gasped as sensation overwhelmed him, not pain, but an expansion of awareness that threatened to shatter his sense of self. He felt Eunice's hand clasp his, anchoring him as reality wavered around them. Through their contact, her Omnitrix nature resonated with the transforming Omnitrix, creating a harmonic that stabilized the process. The advancing sentries halted, their impossible geometries fluctuating as if responding to the energy now emanating from Ben. Within the tear, the larger anomaly pulsed, indigo light intensifying. Then everything changed. The Omnitrix didn't simply transform Ben as it had thousands of times before. Instead, it merged with him on a cellular level, nanites flowing through his bloodstream, integrating with his nervous system, rewriting his DNA with fluid adaptability rather than rigid transformation. Power unlike anything he'd ever experienced coursed through him, evolutionary potential of 10,000 species suddenly accessible without limitation. Ben looked down at his hands, still recognizably human yet somehow more. Beneath the skin, patterns shifted and flowed, Petrosapian crystal one moment, Pyronite flame the next, each alien essence responding to his thoughts without requiring complete transformation. Ben, Eunice's voice reached him through the cascade of sensations. Are you still, you? He turned to her, seeing her with new eyes that perceived spectrums beyond human capability. She glowed with Omnitrix energy, beautiful and familiar despite his altered perception. I'm here, he assured her, his voice resonating with subtle harmonics. It's different than I expected. Not a transformation so much as an expansion. Relief washed across her features. The protocol is stabilizing. Your human consciousness is maintaining coherence. Their moment of connection shattered as the nearest crystalline sentry suddenly lunged forward. Geometrically impossible limbs stretching across space in defiance of physics. Its touch had disintegrated plumber agents minutes earlier. Ben reacted instinctively. His arm shifted, not to a single alien form, but to a fluid hybridization of Diamondhead's crystalline structure and feedback's energy conductors. As the sentry made contact, he absorbed its quantum disruption field and redirected it in a concentrated burst. The sentry shattered, fragments dissolving into particles that winked out of existence. The remaining sentries paused, their movements suggesting communication or reassessment. It worked, Ben breathed, examining his arm as it flowed back to its mostly human appearance. I can adapt to their attacks in real time. The Omega Protocol is functioning as theorized, Eunice confirmed. Scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. Your body is synthesizing hybrid responses to each threat. Ben turned toward the reality tear, newfound senses perceiving the complex quantum mechanics maintaining the breach. I think I can close it. The pattern is complex, but if I generate a counter-resonance. He extended both hands, which transformed into a blend of Clockwork's temporal manipulation components and Alien X's reality-altering capabilities. Energy flowed from him into the tear, matching its frequency but inverting the phase. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The anomaly's edges began to contract, its indigo light dimming. Then, without warning, a surge of power erupted from within the tear. A voice that wasn't a voice, communicating directly into Ben's expanded consciousness. Interesting. You possess the convergence key. Asterisk. The sentries suddenly moved in perfect unison, surrounding Ben and Eunice in a precise geometric formation. Rather than attacking, they began to resonate, amplifying the signal from within the tear. Ben. Alina's voice came through the communicator at his wrist, the only part of the Omnitrix that remained externally visible. Something's happening. The readings are off the charts. Before he could respond, the tear pulsed once more. This time, a figure emerged, humanoid but wrong in subtle, disturbing ways. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, its form composed of the same crystalline material as the sentries but infinitely more complex. Where their geometries had been unsettling, this being's structure was beautiful in its alien perfection. It regarded Ben with facets that somehow conveyed the impression of eyes. When it spoke, the words formed directly in his mind. The Anodite descendant wields the convergence key. Unexpected, but fortuitous. Your genetic template will facilitate the harmonization. Asterisk. Who are you? Ben demanded, instinctively shifting his body's composition to a defensive configuration, part Petrosapian durability, part galvanic mechamorph adaptability. What do you want with Earth? The crystalline figure tilted its head, the motion too smooth to be natural. I am a voice of the Chronarch. Earth is irrelevant except as the locus of the convergence key. Your Omnitrix is the final component required for reality optimization. Asterisk. Reality optimization, Eunice repeated, her scientific mind immediately grasping implications that eluded Ben. You're trying to rewrite the fundamental constants of the universe. Correct. Current reality configuration is inefficient. Temporal paradoxes accumulate. Dimensional barriers erode. The Chronarch will implement corrections. Asterisk. Ben stepped forward, power flowing through him as he assessed potential attack vectors. And what happens to existing life during these corrections? The being's crystalline surface rippled in what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. Most will be reconfigured, some will cease. Efficiency requires sacrifice. Asterisk. Not happening. Ben stated flatly. Whatever you are, whatever you want, You don't get to rewrite reality at the cost of innocent lives. He struck without further warning. Chan. Ealing heat blasts pyrokinetic abilities through NRG's radioactive matrix to create a fusion blast that would have melted solid neutronium. The energy engulfed the crystalline being, and passed through it without effect, dissipating into the anomaly behind it. Conventional energy manipulation is insufficient. The convergence key, however. Without warning, the being moved with impossible speed, its form seeming to fold through dimensions rather than travel through normal space. Before Ben could react, it stood directly before him, a crystalline hand pressed against the spot where the Omnitrix had merged with his chest. Pain beyond anything he'd experienced tore through him as the being attempted to interface directly with the Omega Protocol. Ben felt his newly integrated powers fluctuating wildly, alien DNA sequences activating and deactivating in chaotic patterns. Ben! Eunice cried out, launching herself at the crystalline being. Her Omnitrix nature manifested in a burst of green energy as she made contact. Her own technological essence attempting to disrupt the invader's connection. The being recoiled momentarily, its perfect geometry distorting. Anomalous technology detected. UNITRIX component unexpected. Recalculating approach. The moment's reprieve was enough for Ben to reassert control. Drawing on Chromastone's energy absorption and feedback's conductive abilities, he channeled the disruption the being had caused back outward in a concentrated burst. The crystalline figure staggered, its form briefly destabilizing. Elena, Ben called out, maintaining pressure on the destabilized being. We need to collapse the tier. Can your nanochips interface with the Omnitrix signal? Elena's voice came through clearly despite the quantum distortion surrounding them. Theoretically, yes. But the power requirements would be. I'll handle the power, Ben interrupted. Just be ready. The crystalline being was already recovering, its form realigning into perfect geometric symmetry once more. Resistance is counterproductive. The Chronarch cannot be denied. Watch me, Ben retorted, and embraced the Omega Protocol's full potential. Time seemed to slow, as his consciousness expanded beyond normal limits. He perceived the quantum structure of reality itself. The threads connecting all things, the possibilities branching from every moment. The Omnitrix had always given him access to alien forms, but now he understood them at their fundamental level, not just their abilities, but the evolutionary purpose behind them, the cosmic role each species played in the universe's grand design. With Eunice at his side, their energies resonating in perfect harmony, he reached out to Elena's nanochip network. The microscopic machines responded, creating a technological trinity, Omnitrix, Omnitrix, and nanochips working in concert to generate a counter-resonance to the Chronarch's disruption. The crystalline being sensed what they were attempting. Stop. You cannot comprehend the consequences. Reality requires correction. Not your correction, Ben replied, channeling power through the tripartite connection. Not at this cost. Energy erupted from the three of them, green from Eunice, blue from Elena's nanochips, and indigo from Ben's Omega-enhanced form. The converging beams struck the reality tear at precisely the right frequencies, disrupting He quantum entanglement maintaining the breach. The crystalline being moved with desperate speed, attempting to stop them, but Ben was ready. Drawing on Alien X's limited reality manipulation filter through the Omega Protocol's adaptive matrix, he created a localized time dilation field. Within it, the being slowed to a crawl while the counter-resonance continued unimpeded. The tear began to contract, its edges folding inward as the supporting quantum framework collapsed. The sentries surrounding them destabilized, their connection to the Chronarch weakening as the dimensional bridge failed. You cannot prevent the inevitable. The crystalline being communicated, its message fading as the tear closed. The flaws in reality remain. The Chronarch will find another way. With a final pulse of indigo light, the anomaly collapsed completely. The crystalline being fragmented, pieces dissolving into particles that vanished as they lost connection to their home dimension. In orbit, sensors would later confirm. The massive entity that had begun to emerge likewise retreated, forced back through the closing dimensional doorway. The sudden silence felt almost physical in its intensity. Ben staggered, the enormous energy expenditure taking its toll even on his enhanced form. Eunice caught him, her own strength bolstered by the Omnitrix's fundamental connection to the Omnitrix. You did it, she breathed. Wonder and relief mingling in her voice. Ben looked down at himself, at the fluidly shifting patterns beneath his skin as alien DNA continued to flow through his system. We did it, together. Elena approached cautiously, her nanochips forming a protective swarm around her. The connection they'd shared during the counter-resonance had changed something between them, a bridge. Built on trust and shared purpose rather than Elena's former obsession. The anomaly has completely collapsed, she reported, professionalism masking the awe in her eyes as she regarded Ben's transformed state. No residual quantum signatures detected. Ben nodded, processing this information through senses far beyond human capability. It's gone for now, but it was right about one thing: there are flaws in the fabric of reality. Weak points where it could try again. Then we'll be ready, Eunice stated with quiet determination. As plumber agents cautiously returned to secure the area, Ben became acutely aware of the changes the Omega Protocol had wrought. The Omnitrix wasn't just a device on his wrist anymore, it had become an integral part of him, alien DNA flowing through his system in constant flux. Adapting to his needs moment by moment. Can you reverse it? He asked Eunice quietly. Return the Omnitrix to its normal state. She studied him with scientific precision, but the was more than professional interest in her gaze. I don't know. The protocol was never meant to be temporary. Azimuth might be able to help, but this might be permanent, Ben finished. The thought should have terrified him. His humanity altered on a fundamental level, his identity merged with the device that had defined so much of his life. Yet strangely, it felt right. Natural, even, as if the Omnitrix and he had always been moving toward this synthesis. Elena joined them, her dark eyes assessing Ben with newfound respect. The nanochips have stabilized, but they're still detecting trace elements of the Chronarch's energy signature. Whatever that thing was, it hasn't given up. It's just retreated to regroup. Then we need to understand what it wants, Ben said. It called the Omnitrix a convergence key. That has to mean something. And it recognized your anodite heritage, Eunice added, her scientific mind already analyzing possibilities. The combination of the Omnitrix and your specific genetic makeup might be what it's after. Ben looked between the two women, Eunice, whose connection to him transcended conventional relationship definitions, and Elena, whose PATH had run parallel to his in ways neither could have predicted. In this moment of crisis, old rivalries and complications seemed to fade in importance. Whatever's coming, he said with quiet conviction, we'll face it together. As plumber ships arrived to secure the area, the three of them stood united, changed by what they'd experienced, bound by purpose and perhaps something more. The Chronarch had been driven back, but Ben knew this was only the beginning. The Omega Protocol had awakened something in him, something that would be essential in the battles to come. And as he looked at Eunice, catching the mix of concern and something deeper in her eyes, he realized some changes, whether to the Omnitrix or to the heart, might be worth embracing after all. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Protocols and Paradigms. The plumber flagship _resolute_ cut through hyperspace with practiced precision, its quantum engines humming at frequencies only Ben's newly enhanced senses could detect. 3 days had passed since the Chronarch's failed incursion, yet the Omega Protocol continued to flow through his system, refusing to revert to the Omnitrix's standard configuration. Ben stood alone in the observation bay, watching the kaleidoscopic streams of hyperspace twist and fold around the ship. With each passing hour, his perception evolved, layers of reality previously invisible now revealing themselves in stunning clarity. The universe was more complex, more interconnected than he had ever imagined. Beautiful, isn't it? Eunice's voice drew him from his contemplation. She entered the observation bay with quiet grace, her white and green uniform crisp despite their hasty departure from Earth. 3 days in close quarters had reacquainted them with rhythms and patterns once familiar. The way she tilted her head when curious, how she unconsciously mirrored his posture when they spoke. It's like seeing the universe's circulatory system, Ben replied, gesturing to the hyperspace currents. Energy flowing between dimensions, connecting everything. She moved beside him, her shoulder nearly touching his. Your perception has expanded beyond standard human parameters. As that, your scientific way of asking if I'm still human. A small smile touched her lips. I was attempting tact. Appreciated, but unnecessary. Ben raised his hand, watching as the skin rippled with Uttal patterns, kinesolaran speed matrices one moment, Galvan neural pathways the next. I don't feel less human. Just more. The Omega Protocol was never fully tested, Eunice said softly. Azimuth H theorized it would create a permanent symbiosis, but the psychological effects. You're worried I'll lose myself. It wasn't a question. Her green eyes met his directly. I'm worried about who you might become if this can't be reversed. The door to the observation bay hissed open before Ben could respond. Elena entered, data tablet in hand, her movements precise and economical. Unlike Eunice's warmth, Elena carried herself with clinical detachment, a defense mechanism Ben recognized from their complicated past. Hyperspace transition in 20 minutes, she announced. Azimuth is meet Eunice personally at the Galvan Science Directorate. Ben nodded, noting the subtle tension that always materialized when the three of them occupied the same space. Has he shared any insights about the Omega Protocol? Nothing specific. Elena's dark eyes flicked to the shifting patterns beneath his skin. But he's requested comprehensive biometric data. I've prepared the necessary scanning equipment. Eunice crossed her arms. Ben isn't a laboratory specimen, Elena. No, Elena agreed coolly. He's potentially the most powerful being in the galaxy, integrated with technology even its creator doesn't fully understand. Caution seems reasonable. Before Eunice could retort, Ben stepped between them, recognizing the familiar signs of conflict. Both valid points. I'm happy to provide whatever data might help. But let's remember we're facing a common threat. The tension eased fractionally as both women acknowledged the truth in his words. Their journey had been marked by similar moments, professional cooperation alternating with personal friction. The unspoken romantic history that connected him to each of them remained a gravitational force, shifting their orbits in unpredictable ways. I've completed analysis of the Chronarch's quantum signature, Elena continued, her focus returning to the data tablet. Its dimensional resonance doesn't match any known universe in the Plummer database. Because it exists outside conventional reality, Eunice theorized, professional interest temporarily overriding personal feelings. The crystalline being said reality needed core action, suggesting it perceives our universe as flawed or damaged. Ben considered this, the Omega Protocol allowing him to process information with unprecedented clarity. It called the Omnitrix a convergence key, as if it were meant to unlock something. Or someone, Elena added grimly. It specifically referenced your anodite heritage. The combination may be what it's seeking. The ship's communication system chimed, interrupting their discussion. Magister Patelidae's amphibian features appeared on the view screen. Ambassador Tennyson, we're receiving an incoming transmission from Galvan Prime. Priority Ultra. Put it through, Ben instructed. The screen flickered, resolving into the familiar form of Azimuth, small in stature but commanding in presence. The first thinker's expression tightened upon seeing Ben, his enormous eyes narrowing at the visible effects of the Omega Protocol. So it's true, Azimuth stated, his tone a complex mixture of scientific fascination and profound concern. The protocol has initiated integration. Ben stepped closer to the screen. Not by choice. We were attacked by something called the Chronarch. The Omega signal activated in response. The Chronarch. Azimuth's expression darkened. A theoretical entity I'd hoped would remain theoretical. If it's manifesting in our reality, matters are worse than I anticipated. You know what it is. Eunice moved beside Ben, her scientific curiosity evident. Your archives contained no reference to such an entity. Because I removed those references, Azimuth replied sharply. Some knowledge is too dangerous to record. Even in Galvan databases. He leaned closer to the screen, examining Ben with critical intensity. The integration appears to have stabilized at approximately 62% completion. You've maintained conscious control, completely, Ben confirmed. Though my perception is different. Accelerate your arrival, Azimuth ordered. The protocol must be contained before integration progresses further. There are complications you cannot comprehend. The screen went dark before Ben could respond, leaving the three of them in troubled silence. Elena was the first to speak, her analytical mind already processing implications. He's afraid of you, she observed. The greatest intellect in 5 galaxies, and he's afraid of what you're becoming. With good reason, Eunice countered. The Omega Protocol wasn't designed for prolonged activation. The power it channels could be exactly what we need against the Chronarch, Ben interrupted, a new determination forming within him. Whatever Azimuth knows, whatever he's hiding, we need the full picture. The ship shuddered slightly as it prepared to exit hyperspace. Through the viewport, the swirling quantum foam of interdimensional transit began to coalesce into conventional space-time. Galvan Prime materialized before them, a world of technological marvels where science had transcended into art. Gleaming spurs rose from meticulously designed landscapes, their geometries reflecting mathematical principles beyond human understanding. But something was wrong. Even from orbit, Ben could sense disturbances in the planet's quantum field, subtle ripples in reality similar to those they'd encountered on Earth. The Chronarch has been here, he stated with grim certainty, the Omega Protocol enhancing his perception beyond normal senses. Elena consulted her instruments, face tightening. Confirmed. Quantum distortion patterns match Earth readings, though at significantly lower intensity. It's testing defenses, Eunice realized. Probing different worlds, seeking vulnerabilities. As the _resolute_ began its descent toward the Galvan Science Directorate, Ben felt the Omega Protocol responding to the lingering quantum distortions. Power surged through him, alien DNA configurations shifting more rapidly beneath his skin as the integrated Omnitrix prepared countermeasures for threats not yet materialized. The Chronarch will find another way the crystalline being had warned. Ben had a sinking feeling it had already begun. The Galvan Science Directorate towered over the capital city, its architecture a testament to the species' unsurpassed intellect. Concentric rings of laboratories and research chambers surrounded a central spire that housed the most advanced technology in the known universe. Normally bustling with activity, today the Directorate operated under heightened security, Galvan guards stationed at every entrance, their diminutive size belying the devastating power of their weapons. Azimuth met them in a private laboratory deep within the central spire. The first thinker observed Ben with clinical detachment that failed to conceal his concern. Behind him stood another Galvan scientist, her features bearing the distinctive markings of the academic elite. This is First Counselor Zenith, Azimuth introduced without preamble. She heads our dimensional stability Y division and will be assisting in our analysis. Ben recognized the name from fragments of Azimuth's personal history. Zenith had been his former partner, both professionally and personally, before. His creation of the Sword of Ascalon had driven them apart centuries ago. Her presence spoke to the gravity of the situation. The protocol integration has progressed further since our communication, Azimuth noted. Circling Ben with evaluative scrutiny. Dermal manifestation of alien DNA sequences, quantum perception enhancement, possible temporal sensitivity, concerning. I'd prefer explanations to observations, Ben replied. His patience waning. What is the Chronarch, and why does it want the Omnitrix? Azimuth and Zenith exchanged meaningful glances before the first thinker sighed. Is age momentarily visible in his posture? The analysis chamber, he directed, indicating an adjacent room filled with equipment beyond even plumber technological understanding. As they entered, holographic displays activated automatically, presenting multidimensional models of reality constructs. Elena moved immediately to examine the technology, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. Eunice remained close to Ben, her Omnitrix nature allowing her to sense subtle fluctuations in the Omega Protocol's energy signature. The Chronarch, Azimuth began, activating a central projection, is not an entity in the conventional sense. It is a conceptual manifestation of cosmic error correction, a fundamental force personified. The hologram displayed a crystalline structure of impossible geometry, shifting between dimensions as they watched. When I created the Omnitrix, he continued, I glimpsed mathematical patterns suggesting the existence of entities that oversee cosmic balance. Chronarch represents order taken to its extreme, the elimination of chaos, possibility, and free will in favor of predetermined cosmic perfection. You knew about this and built the Omnitrix anyway. Elena's question carried an accusatory edge. I built the Omnitrix because of this knowledge, Azimuth corrected sharply. Universal diversity is our strongest defense against cosmic homogenization. The preservation of all genetic codes ensures adaptability in the face of forces that would impose rigid order. Ben studied the projection, the Omega Protocol allowing him to perceive layers of information invisible to others. The crystalline being called me an Anodite descendant, and the Omnitrix a convergence key. What did it mean? Zenith stepped forward, her voice carrying the precision characteristic of Galvan scientists. Your grandmother's anodite energy is mana-based, pure life force that connects all living things. Combined with the Omnitrix's comprehensive genetic database, you represent a unique convergence point between biological evolution and energy manipulation. A key that could unlock what, exactly? Eunice pressed. Reality reconfiguration, Azimuth stated bluntly. The Chronarch seeks to optimize existence by eliminating what it perceives as errors, primarily free will and evolutionary randomness. Your combined anodite Omnitrix potential could provide T power necessary for such a fundamental rewriting of cosmic constants. The implications settled heavily upon them. Ben had faced universe-ending threats before, but this was different, not destruct. Ion but the wholesale revision of reality itself, the elimination of choice and possibility. That's why you created the Omega Protocol, he realized. As a countermeasure, Azimuth nodded grimly. A theoretical failsafe I hoped would never be needed. It allows the Omnitrix user to match the Chronarch's reality manipulation capabilities, but at tremendous cost. What cost? Ben demanded. The Phi RST thinker's enormous eyes fixed on him with uncharacteristic empathy. Integration between user and device continues until distinction becomes meaningless. Your consciousness would expand beyond human comprehension, perceiving all possibilities simultaneously. Few minds could maintain coherence under such conditions. You're saying I'd lose my humanity, Ben concluded quietly. I'm saying you would transcend it, Azimuth corrected. Whether that transcendence preserves your essential self remains uncertain. Silence filled the chamber as Ben processed this revelation. The patterns beneath his skin flowed more rapidly, responding to his emotional state. At 62% integration, he retained complete self-awareness, but what would happen at 70%? At 90%, at completion, Elena broke the tension, her analytical mind focusing on practical concerns. Can the process be reversed? Theoretically, Zenith answered, but doing so would require. A sharp alarm cut through her explanation. Holog. Rafik monitors throughout the chamber flashed with warning signals as Galvan security protocols activated automatically. Dimensional breach detected, announced a computerized voice. Quantum stabilizers engaging. All personnel proceed to designated safety zones. Azimuth moved swiftly to a control console, his small fingers dancing across interfaces with practiced precision. Impossible. RD. Detection grid should have identified any approach. It didn't approach, Ben interrupted, newfound senses detecting disturbances in the fabric of reality itself. It was already here, dormant until now. The laboratory shuddered as temporal distortions rippled through the directorate. Through the transparent walls, they watched as sections of the building phased in and out of normal space-time, existing in multiple states simultaneously. The sensor probes from 3 days ago, Eunice realized. They weren't just gathering data, they were planting quantum seeds. Azimuth's expression confirmed her theory. Chronarch incursion tactics, dimensional bridgeheads established before the main assault. He turned to Ben, professional detachment giving way to urgency. You must leave immediately. If the Chronarch captures you in the Omega Protocol, I'm not running, Ben stated flatly. Not while people are in danger. Before Azimuth could argue, the laboratory door hissed open. A human woman rushed in. Her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, her clothing marked with the dust of recent excavation. Recognition flashed across Ben's face. Kai Green halted abruptly, surprise momentarily overriding her purpose. Ben. What are you? She shook her head, refocusing. No time. First thinker, the artifacts are responding to the dimensional fluctuations. The glyphs are changing. Azimuth's attention sharpened. Show me. Kai activated a holographic projector on her wrist, displaying images of ancient stone tablets covered in script that shifted between forms as they watched. These were stable for millennia. Now they're cycling through variations every few seconds. The Chronarch's presence is affecting temporal constants, Zenith concluded. Historical records are becoming fluid. Ben studied the glyphs, the Omega Protocol translating patterns his human mind would never have recognized. These aren't just changing, they're prophesying. showing potential futures based on present actions. Kai stared at him, noticing for the first time the alien patterns flowing beneath his skin. What happened to you? Long story, he replied, then turned to Azimuth. These tablets, what are they? Remnants from the Contempolia, the first thinker answered reluctantly. The species that preceded even the celestial sapiens as universal architects. Dr. Green has been studying them as part of her archaeological research. And now they're reacting to the Chronarch, Eunice observed. As if recognizing an old enemy. The building shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the windows, they could see crystalline formations materializing throughout the directorate, geometric structures that defied conventional physics, sprouting like metallic flora from quantum fracture points. We need to evacuate, Elena stated, practical as ever. The structural integrity won't hold, Ben finished, the Omega Protocol providing calculations his human mind could never have processed. But I can stabilize it. Without waiting for discussion, he strode toward the exit. Eunice moved to follow, but he held up a hand. Stay with Azimuth and the others. Find a way to reverse this integration if you can. I'll handle the Chronarch forces. Not alone, Kai interjected unexpectedly, unslinging a compact device from her shoulder, plumber issue, but modified with what appeared to be Contempolia technology. These artifacts aren't just historical records. They're weapons designed specifically against dimensional incursions. Ben assessed her with new eyes. The Kai Green he'd known years ago had been driven and intelligent, but this woman carried herself with the confident competence of someone who had faced danger and emerged stronger. The archaeologist had evolved into a warrior scholar. 2 minutes, he conceded. Grab whatever you need. While Kai collected additional equipment, Elena approached Ben, her expression professionally neutral despite the tension in her stance. Take this, she said, offering a small device. It will disrupt the quantum fields the Chronarch uses for manifestation. Limited use, but might buy you time. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and Ben caught a glimpse of the emotion behind her clinical exterior, concern not just for the mission, but for him specifically. Their complicated history had not erased fundamental connections. Be careful, she added quietly. Across the room, Eunice worked rapidly with Azimuth, but her attention periodically shifted to Ben and Elena, her expression unreadable. The complex dynamics between the three of them would need to be addressed eventually, but not now, not with reality itself under attack. When Kai returned, she and Ben moved swiftly through the directorate. Emergency protocols had sealed most sections, but the Omega Protocol allowed Ben to perceive dimensional weak points, places where normal space connected to the fracture zones where Chronarch forces were emerging. You still haven't explained what happened to you, Kai noted as they navigated a corridor where gravity fluctuated unpredictably. The last I heard, you were playing diplomat to the stars. The abbreviated version, the Omnitrix has a doomsday protocol that's partially activated. I'm currently about 60% merged with alien DNA on a quantum level. Kai processed this with remarkable equanimity. And the women you arrived with. Eunice is technically the Omnitrix, a prototype of the Omnitrix that developed sentience. Elena is a former villain turned alive with nanomachine abilities. Complicated, Kai observed with surprising perceptiveness. Romantically too, I'm guessing. Ben shot her a surprised glance, which she answered with a knowing smile. I've spent the last years studying alien cultural artifacts, Ben. I've gotten better at reading people. Her smile faded as they approached a large atrium now filled with crystalline growths. Including myself. Before Ben could decipher that cryptic statement, they entered the atrium and confronted the full scope of the incursion. Dozens of crystalline sentries moved with perfect coordination, their impossible geometries distorting local space-time. Galvan security forces fired specialized weapons that seemed to have minimal effect, the energy pulses simply passing through the multidimensional beings. At the center of the atrium stood a larger crystalline figure, similar to the one Ben had encountered on Earth, but more complex, its facets containing what appeared to be galaxies in miniature. The convergence key approaches. It communicated directly into their minds. Synchronicity patterns align. Ben felt the Omega Protocol respond to the entity's presence, power surging through his system as Ion DNA configurations cycled more rapidly. What do you want? Optimization. Correction. The dissolution of quantum uncertainty. Asterisk. Translation. The end of free will, Kai stated, readying her modified weapon. Hard pass. The crystalline entity tilted its head with that unnaturally fluid motion. Freedom is chaos. Chaos breeds suffering. The chronarch offers perfection. Asterisk. Perfection is stagnation, Ben countered. Feeling the Omega Protocol responding to his intent, alien abilities flowing into new configurations. Life needs possibility to evolve. Evolution is inefficient. The Converge ENCE key will allow instantaneous optimization. Asterisk. Without further discussion, the entity gestured. The surrounding sentries moved in perfect unison, converging on Ben and Kai with geometric precision. Ben reacted instinctively, the Omega Protocol manifesting a hybrid defense. Petrosapian crystal merged with Celestial Sapian spatial manipulation, creating a shield that existed partially outside conventional physics. Kai fired her weapon, the modified technology emitting not energy but a concentrated burst of chronoparticles, time itself weaponized. Where it struck, the crystalline sentries momentarily phased out of sync with reality. Their perfect geometries disrupted. Effective, Ben noted with appreciation. Contemporalia temporal disruptors, Kai explained between shots. They understood dimensional warfare better than any species in history. Working in sync, they pushed forward through the atrium. Ben's shields protected them from direct assault while Kai's weapons created openings for counterattack. The combination proved surprisingly effective, until the main entity decided to intervene personally. Analysis complete. Containment protocols initiated. Asterisk. It made a complex gesture, and reality folded around them. Space-time twisted, forming a pocket dimension that separated them from the main atrium. Within this bubble, the rules of physics operated differently, gravity pull. In multiple directions simultaneously, light bending along non-Euclidean paths. Dimensional isolation field, Kai gasped, struggling to maintain her footing as gravity shifted beneath them. It's cutting us off from normal space-time. Quote. Ben felt the Omega Protocol straining against the altered physics, his partially integrated form struggling to adapt to rules of reality that changed moment by moment. The crystalline entity approached, its movements smooth despite the chaotic environment. The convergence key will be extracted. Resistance causes unnecessary suffering. Asterisk. I've heard that before, Ben retorted, channeling Gravitax's gravity manipulation to stabilize their position. Never turns out to be true. He launched a counterattack, combining NRG's radioactive output with that. Omix's nuclear manipulation, a fusion of energies that would have vaporized a small moon. The blast struck the entity directly, and passed through it without effect, the energy disappearing into dimensional pockets that opened and closed faster than perception. Conventional attacks cannot affect multidimensional beings. The Omnitrix in its current configuration is insufficient. Asterisk. Then let's try something unconventional. Kai suggested, removing a small artifact from her belt, a crystalline dodecahedron that pulsed with internal light. Contemporalia phase inverter might disrupt its dimensional shifting. The entity registered the artifact and, for the first time, exhibited something resembling concern. Contemporalia technology detected. Priority target reassessed. Asterisk. It moved with sudden speed. No longer focused on Ben but on Kai and the artifact she held. Ben reacted instantly, the Omega Protocol responding to his desperate need to protect her. Something new happened. Beyond the flu. DNA adaptations he'd experienced before, beyond the hybrid abilities he'd already manifested. The Omega Protocol accelerated. Power surged through him as integration jumped from 62% to 75% in a matter of seconds. His perception expanded exponentially, consciousness stretching beyond human limitations. He could see the dimensional structure of reality itself, the quantum threads connecting all things. The possibilities branching from every moment, the multidimensional nature of the entity they faced. And he could see how to counter it. Ben reached out, not physically but through the Omega Protocol's enhanced capabilities. He grasped the dimensional pocket the entity had created and twisted, inverting its properties. The crystalline being stumbled as its own reality manipulation turned against it. Protocol activation detected. Integration progressing. Interesting. Asterisk. Taking advantage of the entity's momentary disorientation, Kai activated the Contemporalia device. A pulse of energy unlike anything in conventional physics erupted from the artifact, striking the crystalline being at its core. Where the energy touched, the perfect geometric structure distorted, facets shattering to reveal the void between dimensions. The entity recoiled, its mental communication becoming fragmented. Unexpected. Recalculating. Retreat protocols. Asterisk. With a sound like reality itself tearing, the dimensional pocket collapsed. Ben and Kai found themselves back in the atrium, the crystalline sentries retreating into rapidly closing dimensional fractures. The main entity remained momentarily, its damaged form fluctuating between states of existence. The convergence approaches regardless, asterisk it communicated, its message weaker but filled with absolute certainty. This reality has fundamental flaws. The Chronarch will correct them. Asterisk. Then it too disappeared, the dimensional breach sealing behind it. The atrium fell silent save for the sounds of Galvan emergency systems activating to contain the damage. Ben staggered, the surge of power from the accelerated integration leaving him disoriented. His perception remained expanded beyond human parameters, the universe appearing as INTER connected patterns of energy and possibility. Kai caught him before he could fall, her touch anchoring him to physical reality. Ben, are you all right? Concern colored her voice as she studied alien patterns flowing more rapidly beneath his skin. I'm processing, he managed, struggling to contain the flood of information streaming through his consciousness. The integration accelerated. I'm seeing too much. She helped him to a nearby bench, keeping one hand on his arm as if sensing that physical contact helped ground him. What do you mean, seeing too much? Everything, he whispered. All possibilities, all potential outcomes branching from this moment. It's overwhelming. Kai's expression shifted from concern to determination. Focus on me. One reality, one moment. Just this. Ben concentrated on her presence, the solidity of her hand on his arm, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the unwavering focus in her dark eyes. Gradually, the cascade of possibilities receded, his consciousness pulling back from the brink of dissolution. Better, he sighed, the patterns beneath his skin slowing their chaotic cycling. Thank you. Kai studied him with scientific curiosity now that immediate concern had passed. The Omnitrix is changing you. Not just physically. Azimuth warned me, the further the integration progresses, the less human I become. I wouldn't say that, she countered thoughtfully. What I just saw wasn't inhuman. Just expanded. Before Ben could respond, Galvan security teams flooded the atrium, followed closely by Azimuth, Zenith, Eunice, and Elena. The two women rushed forward when they saw Ben's condition, professional concern masking deeper emotions. Integration acceleration, Eunice noted immediately, her Omnitrix nature allowing her to sense the change. 75% completion. Elena already had scanning equipment active. Neural patterns are destabilizing. We need to get him to a medical facility. No, Ben stated with surprising firmness. I'm stable, just processing differently. Azimuth approached, his expression grim as he assessed Ben's condition. The protocol responded to threat stimulus by accelerating integration. This is precisely why I warned against its activation. It wasn't exactly voluntary, Kai pointed out, her hand still on Ben's arm. And it saved our lives. The first thinker turned his attention to the Contemplalia artifact she held. As did this, apparently. Where did you acquire a phase inverter? Excavation site on Kalatos Prime, Kai answered, professional pride momentarily overriding the crisis situation. The Contemplalia left outposts throughout this galaxy, weapons caches designed specifically to combat dimensional incursions. Weapons that affect the Chronarch, Ben noted. His expanded consciousness making connections his human mind might have missed. Which means they've been here before. This isn't their first attempt to optimize reality. Azimuth nodded reluctantly. The Contemplalia arose specifically to counter the Chronarch's first incursion, eons ago. They drove it back into the void between dimensions, then established a cosmic equilibrium that prevented its return. Until now, Elena observed. What changed? Time travel, Zenith answered, her scientific precision evident even in crisis. Paradoxes created by interference with the natural flow of time. Each contradiction, each altered timeline creates micro-fractures in reality's foundation. Ben's expanded consciousness immediately grasped the implication. Paradox warned me about this years ago. Said time had been broken and repaired too many times. Indeed, Azimuth confirmed, the Chronarch is drawn to these fractures like water seeking the path of least resistance. Your own adventures through time have contributed to the weakening of dimensional barriers. The weight of unintended consequences settled heavily on Ben's shoulders. His actions, meant to save the universe, had readed vulnerabilities now being exploited by a force beyond comprehension. Then we need to repair those fractures, he stated, standing despite the others' concerned protests. Seal the breaches before the Chronarch can fully manifest. Impossible without a complete understanding of dimensional mechanics, Azimuth countered. Even my intellect has limits in this domain. The Contemplalia artifacts might help, Kai suggested. They contain information about the previous incursion and countermeasures. Perhaps, Zenith acknowledged, but deciphering them would take years under normal circumstances. Ben felt the Omega Protocol shifting within him, responding to the challenge. His expanded consciousness perceived solutions invisible to conventional thinking. I might be able to help with that. The integration has enhanced my cognitive abilities. Eunice stepped closer, concern evident beneath her scientific curiosity. At what cost, Ben? Your human consciousness is already struggling to contain the expanded awareness. She's right, Elena added, setting aside personal feelings in favor of medical assessment. Pushing the integration further could accelerate the process beyond your ability to maintain coherence. Their concern touched him deeply, but Ben recognized the necessity of embracing rather than fighting the changes within him. It's a calculated risk, but if the Chronarch returns in force, we'll need every advantage. A tense silence followed as the implications of his decision registered with everyone present. Azimuth broke it with uncharacteristic gentleness. There may be an alternative. A method to stabilize the integration at its current level while allowing controlled access to enhanced capabilities. He glanced at Eunice meaningfully. Though it would require significant sacrifice. Quote, Eunice immediately understood, her expression shifting from confusion to realization and finally to resolve. The Omnitrix integration protocol. You want me to serve as a buffer system. What does that mean? Ben demanded, sensing something momentous in their exchange. It means, Eunice explained quietly, that I could synchronize my Omnitrix matrix with your Omega protocol. My systems would help regulate the integration, preventing further acceleration while allowing you to access enhanced abilities when needed. At what risk to you? Ben's voice hardened. Eunice met his gaze directly. Potential system corruption. Possible permanent integration of my own consciousness with the Omnitrix matrix. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. In simpler terms, I might lose pieces of who I am. Quote, unacceptable, Ben stated flatly. Necessary, she countered, and my choice to make. The determination in her eyes reminded Ben of why his connection to Eunice had always been different, deeper than attraction, more complex than friendship. She understood sacrifice in ways others could not, having been created rather than born, her very existence a philosophical question without easy answers. There has to be another way, Elena interjected, her scientific mind already seeking alternatives. Perhaps the nanochips could be modified to serve as intermediate processors, distributing the computational load. Too unstable, Azimuth dismissed. The nanochips lack the fundamental connection to Omnitrix technology. Kai, who had been studying the Contemplalia artifact thoughtfully, looked up. What about temporal anchoring? The Contemplalia used chronometric tethers to maintain stability during dimensional transitions. Zenith's eyes widened at the suggestion. Theoretically sound. A temporal constant could provide a reference point for the Omega Protocol, preventing uncontrolled expansion. I volunteer, Kai stated simply. Ben turned to her in surprise. What? Temporal anchoring requires a conscious being unaffected by dimensional shifts, she explained. My exposure to Contemplalia artifacts has already altered my quantum signature. I register as temporally fixed on scans. It would be dangerous, Zenith warned. Serving as a temporal anchor would bind your consciousness to Tennyson's during dimensional interactions. Kai's expression remained resolute. I've spent my life studying the past. Maybe it's time I helped secure the future. The laboratory fell silent as this new possibility took shape. Ben looked between the three women, Eunice, willing to risk her identity, Elena, seeking technological solutions to protect both of them, and Kai, offering herself as a temporal constant in a fluctuating reality. Their motivations were complex, personal yet transcending individual concerns in the face of universal threat. "We're getting ahead of ourselves," Azimuth cautioned. "Before any such measures are implemented, we must fully understand the nature of the current integration and its trajectory." He gestured to a specialized chamber across the laboratory. "The analysis pod will provide more comprehensive data." As Ben moved toward the indicated chamber, he felt the competing pulls of necessity and caution. The Omega Protocol continued to flow through him, alien DNA adapting to his needs moment by moment. Expanded consciousness perceiving layers of reality invisible to others. Power unlike anything he'd experienced before coursed through his veins, power that might be necessary to counter the Chronarch, yet threatened the very identity of Ben Tennyson in the process. The analysis pod resembled a crystalline cocoon, its interior surfaces lined with sensors beyond human technological understanding. As Ben stepped inside, the translucent material sealed around him, connecting with the Omnitrix through filaments of pure energy. "Remain still," Azimuth instructed from an external console. "The Analysis will map the integration pathways and project potential development scenarios." As the scan began, Ben felt the Omega Protocol responding to the POD's energy fields. Information flowed between THM, the device reading the protocol's structure while the protocol simultaneously analyzed the device. Through his expanded awareness, Ben perceived layers of functionality Azimuth had never intended to be discovered. "Fascinating," the first thinker murmured, studying the incoming data. "The integration has created entirely new neural pathways. You're processing information in ways no human should be capable of. Is that good or bad?" Elena asked, monitoring secondary readouts with professional focus that didn't quite mask her concern. "Both," Azimuth replied cryptically. "Enhanced cognitive function may prove essential against the Chronarch. However, the human mind wasn't designed for such expansion. There are consequences." Through the transparent material, Ben could see the others, watching with varying expressions of concern. Eunice's scientific understanding allowed her to interpret the data in real time, her face growing increasingly troubled. Elena maintained professional detachment, though her tightening grip on her data tablet betrayed deeper emotions. Kai observed with the careful analysis of someone accustomed to studying ancient mysteries, seeing patterns others might miss. "What aren't you telling us, Azimuth?" Ben called out, his enhanced perception detecting subtle shifts in the first thinker's energy signature that suggested concealed information. Azimuth hesitated, then sighed, a very human gesture from the normally impassive Galvan. The Omega Protocol wasn't designed solely as a weapon against cosmic threats. It was created as a potential evolutionary step for the wielder. "Explain," Ben demanded. "The Omnitrix has always been more than a transformational device," Azimuth continued reluctantly. "Its ultimate purpose was to foster understanding between species, to help beings comprehend the perspectives of others. The Omega Protocol represents the logical conclusion of that goal, complete comprehension of all evolutionary paths simultaneously. You designed it to create a transcendent being," Zenith realized, her voice reflecting both scientific awe and personal disappointment. "A consciousness capable of perceiving and manipulating reality on a fundamental level." "I designed a theoretical possibility," Azimuth corrected sharply. "One I never intended to implement. The cosmic equilibrium established by the Contempolia should have been sufficient to prevent Chronarch incursion. But time travel broke that equilibrium," Ben concluded, the expanded awareness of the Omega Protocol connecting pieces even Azimuth hadn't fully assembled. "And now you need exactly what you feared creating, a being capable of matching the Chronarch's reality manipulation." The analysis pod chimed as it completed its assessment. The crystalline material retracted, allowing Ben to step out. The others maintained a subtle distance, not from fear, but from unconscious recognition of his altered state. Even standing still, the power flowing through High-M created a palpable field of potential energy. "The results confirm acceleration to 75% integration," Azimuth stated, reviewing the final data. "Neural pathways have expanded beyond human baseline by approximately 840%. Quantum perception capabilities now extend to at least 6 previously undetectable dimensions." "And his human consciousness?" Eunice asked quietly. Azimuth's enormous eyes met Ben's directly. "Stable, but increasingly compartmentalized. The mind is creating structures to contain expanded awareness while preserving core identity. Meaning I'm still me, Ben translated, but me is becoming something more complex. Precisely. Elena stepped forward, her scientific training temporarily overriding personal considerations. What are the projected developments if integration continues to completion? Azimuth hesitated, then activated a holographic display showing a multidimensional model of Ben's consciousness. As the simulation progressed, the central core representing his human identity became increasingly surrounded by expanding fields of awareness that extended beyond the projection's boundaries. At 100% integration, the distinction between user and Omnitrix would become meaningless. The first thinker explained, consciousness would expand beyond conventional dimensions, perceiving all possibilities simultaneously. Whether human identity could survive such expansion remains theoretical. You're saying I could lose myself entirely, Ben stated flatly. I'm saying you would become something beyond current definition, Azimuth corrected. Neither human nor alien, but a unique consciousness capable of perceiving and potentially manipulating the fundamental structure of reality itself. The laboratory fell silent as this revelation settled upon them. Ben felt the weight of cosmic responsibility pressing down alongside the very personal fear of losing his essential self. Everything he was, his memories, his relationships, his identity as Ben Nyson, could be subsumed by the expanding awareness of the Omega Protocol. Yet against the Chronarch, such transcendence might be their only hope. Can the process be reversed? Kai asked, breaking the heavy silence. If we defeat the Chronarch, can Ben be returned to normal? Theoretically, Zenith answered. The Omnitrix synchronization Miss Eunice suggested could potentially serve as a pathway for reversal. But it would require perfect calibration and precise timing. And significant risk to both participants, Azimuth added grimly. Ben looked at Eunice, seeing the resolve in her eyes. Despite the danger such synchronization would pose to her own identity, their connection had always transcended conventional understanding, perhaps because on some fundamental level, they recognized in each other the question of where technology ended and personhood began. We should proceed with the synchronization, Ben decided. Not just to stabilize the current integration, but to establish a pathway for potential reversal. Ben, Eunice began, but he raised a hand to gently interrupt. I know the risks, to both of us. But the alternative is worse. If the integration continues unchecked. He left the consequence unspoken. But they all understood. The loss of Ben Tennyson as they knew him, as he knew himself. Before further discussion could occur, the laboratory's emergency system activated once more. Warning glyphs flashed across holographic displays as sensors detected new dimensional disruptions. Multiple breaches detected throughout the Directorate, Zenith reported, checking the security feeds. Larger than the previous incursion. The Chronarch is escalating, Azimuth stated grimly. It knows we're seeking countermeasures. Through expanded senses, Ben could perceive the dimensional fractures forming throughout the facility, reality itself buckling under pressure from outside normal space-time. The Chronarch wasn't just testing defenses now, it was launching a coordinated assault. We need to evacuate, Elena stated, already accessing emergency protocols on her data tablet. Plumber transport can be here in. Too late, Ben interrupted, his perception extending beyond the laboratory walls. They're targeting this specific location. They know we're here. As if confirming his words, reality shimmered around them. The laboratory walls seemed to fold inward, revealing glimpses of the void between dimensions. Crystalline structures began to materialize from these breaches, more complex than the sentries from the previous encounter, their geometries suggesting specialized functions. Extraction units, Azimuth identified grimly. Designed to isolate and remove specific elements from reality. Ben felt the Omega Protocol responding to the threat. Power surging through his system as alien DNA configurations cycled rapidly. Without conscious decision, his body began to adapt, skin hardening into petrosepian crystal in some areas while conductory D-energy conductors formed along his arms. Get to the secure vault, he ordered, stepping between the others and the materializing threats. The quantum shielding might buy you time. We're not leaving you, Eunice stated firmly. This isn't a debate, Ben countered. Azimuth needs to be protected. His knowledge is essential to countering the Chronarch. Elena assessed the tactical situation with military precision. He's right. Our priority must be preserving the information necessary to develop countermeasures. Reluctantly, Azimuth nodded. The secure vault contains equipment necessary for the Omnitrix synchronization procedure. We can prepare while Tennyson delays the extraction units. I'm staying, Kai announced unexpectedly, readying her Contemlia weapons. My artifacts affect these things. You need my help, Ben. Before he could argue, the first extraction unit fully materialized. Unlike the sentries from earlier encounters, this being resembled a complex geometric web. A three-dimensional matrix of crystalline filaments that pulsed with indigo energy. It oriented toward Ben immediately, filaments extending toward him with precise intent. Convergence key located. Extraction protocols initiated. Ben reacted instinctively, channeling Atomix's energy projection capabilities through a matrix of diamond head crystals. The resulting blast struck the extraction unit directly, causing its perfect geometry to distort momentarily before realigning. Go, he shouted to the others. Now, Azimuth gave a sharp nod, leading Zenith, Eunice, and Elena toward a reinforced door at the rear of the laboratory. Eunice's backward glance carried volumes of unspoken concern, but professional discipline won out over personal feelings. Within moments, the secure vault sealed behind them, leaving Ben and Kai to face the materializing threat. Any tactical suggestions? Ben asked, forming energy shields as additional extraction units began to appear. Kai readied the Contemlia phase inverter. Her expression focused. The artifacts disrupt their dimensional shifting, but they can adapt. We need to keep changing attack patterns. Adaptation is something I'm getting very good at, Ben replied, feeling the Omega protocol shifting within him, responding to his tactical assessments with fluid changes to his hybrid form. The extraction units moved with perfect coordination, surrounding them in a precise geometric pattern that began to pulse with synchronous energy. Ben recognized the strategy immediately through his enhanced perception. They were creating a dimensional cage. A construct that would isolate him and Kai from normal space-time. Resistance is inefficient. Surrender the convergence key. Not a chance, Ben retorted, channeling gravitational manipulation to distort the forming energy pattern. Kai, now, she activated the phase inverter, sending a pulse of Contemlia energy through the distorted field. The combination proved effective. The dimensional cage shattered. Extraction units recoiling as their perfect synchronization failed. It worked, Kai exclaimed, already recalibrating her weapon for another burst. They can't establish a stable field if we keep disrupting their geometric alignment. Ben nodded, the Omega protocol providing tactical analyses beyond normal human capability. They're trying to isolate us. If they can't take us together. Before he could complete the thought, the extraction units changed strategy. Rather than surrounding them both, they split into two distinct formations, one focusing entirely on Ben, the other on Kai. Separation protocols initiated. With terrifying synchronicity, both groups struck simultaneously. The units targeting Kai created a localized time dilation field, SL. Owing her movements to a near standstill despite her attempts to trigger the phase inverter. Those focused on Ben generated a complex energy matrix that began to interface directly with the Omega protocol, attempting to establish control pathways. Ben felt the intrusion as a violation on a fundamental level, not just of his body, but of his very consciousness. The extraction units were attempting to hijack the Omega protocol's integration pathways, using them as conduits to access his anodite heritage. Pain unlike anything he'd experienced before tore through him as the crystalline filaments penetrated the energy field around him, connecting directly with the alien DNA flowing beneath his skin. Through expanded awareness, he could perceive their intent, not to destroy him, but to convert him. To transform the convergence key into a willing component of the Chronarch's design. Resistance causes unnecessary suffering. Accept optimization. Fighting through the pain, Ben focused on Kai's frozen form. The time dilation field had her trapped in a moment of desperate motion, the phase inverter half activated in her hands. If he could disrupt the field around her, her weapon might provide the edge they needed. Drawing on reserves of willpower, Ben channeled Clockwork's temporal manipulation abilities. Instead of attacking the extraction units directly, he projected a counter field around Kai. creating a bubble of accelerated time to offset the dilation effect. For a moment nothing happened. Then Kai's movements suddenly accelerated as the temporal fields cancelled each other. Without hesitation, she completed the activation of the phase inverter, sending a concentrated burst of contemplalia energy through the now destabilized dimensional matrix. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The extraction units surrounding her shattered, their perfect geometries collapsing as they lost coherence with base reality. Using the momentary advantage, she turned the weapon toward the units attacking Ben. "Hold on," she shouted, firing directly into the crystalline filaments penetrating his energy field. The contemplalia energy raced along the connection pathways, disrupting the extraction units' control attempts. Ben seized the opportunity, channeling the disruptive energy through his own system and back into the attacking units in a devastating feedback loop. One by one, the extraction units destabilized, their geometries collapsing as they lost the dimensional coherence necessary to maintain form in normal space-time. Within moments, the laboratory stood empty save for the crystalline fragments rapidly dissolving into nothing. Ben staggered, the strain of resisting the extraction attempt leaving him drained despite the Omega Protocol's enhanced recuperative abilities. Kai moved to his side, supporting him as he struggled to maintain balance. "That was too close," she murmured, examining the areas where the crystalline filaments had penetrated his defenses. Where they had touched, the fluid patterns of alien DNA now appeared frozen, like ice crystals forming on a pond's surface. "They were trying to hijack the protocol," Ben explained, his voice strained. "Use it as a conduit to access my anodite energy. For the convergence," Kai concluded grimly. "Whatever that is." The secure vault's door slid open, revealing Azimuth, Zenith, Eunice, and Elena. They rushed forward, concern evident as they observed Ben's condition. "The extraction units," Azimuth demanded. "Neutralized," Kai reported, "but they nearly succeeded. They've adapted to the quantum Elia technology faster than I anticipated." Eunice moved immediately to Ben's side, her Omnitrix nature allowing her to sense the damage to the Omega Protocol's integration pathways. "The connection matrix has been compromised. The integration is destabilizing." Azimuth's expression tightened as he conducted his own assessment. "Worse than destabilizing. The extraction attempt has accelerated the process in damaged areas while regressing it in others. The integration is becoming uneven." "What does that mean?" Elena asked, already preparing medical equipment from her kit. "It means," Zenith explained gravely, "that the protocol is losing coherence. Some systems are advancing toward complete integration while others are reverting toward baseline. If the pattern continues, the resulting instability could cause catastrophic failure." In less technical terms, Ben translated through gritted teeth, "I'm being torn apart at the molecular level." The patterns beneath his skin confirmed this assessment. Alien DNA configurations cycling chaotically, accelerating in some areas, freezing in others. What had been a fluid, harmonious adaptation was becoming increasingly discordant. "The synchronization procedure," Eunice stated with sudden urgency. "It needs to happen now." "The equipment isn't fully calibrated," Azimuth objected. "The risks are nothing compared to the certainty of what happens if we wait." Eunice interrupted with uncharacteristic sharpness. "I can feel the destabilization, Azimuth. We have minutes, not hours." The first thinker hesitated, then nodded sharply. "Prepare the synchronization chamber. Zenith, recalibrate the quantum resonators to compensate for the uneven integration." As they rushed to implement these instructions, Kai kept her hand firmly on Ben's arm, her touch somehow anchoring him against the chaotic energies threatening to tear him apart. "Stay with us, Ben. Focus on something constant." He tried to smile through the pain. "Like you, if that helps," she replied softly, an unspoken history of might-have-beens passing between them. Across the laboratory, Elena worked with Galvan efficiency to prepare specialized equipment, her scientific expertise temporarily overriding personal concerns. Yet Ben could see the tension in her movements, the barely controlled fear beneath professional focus. They cared for him, all three of them, in different ways and for different reasons. The realization was both warming and terrifying, for what would happen to those connections if the Omega Protocol failed? Or worse, if it succeeded too well, transforming him into something beyond human comprehension. "It's ready," Azimuth announced, indicating a twin-chambered apparatus at the center of the laboratory. One chamber glowed with green energy, calibrated to Eunice's Omnitrix signature, the other pulsed with the indigo light of the Omega Protocol. Between them stood a control console where Zenith made final adjustments with practiced precision. Eunice approached Ben, her expression a complex mixture of scientific determination and personal emotion. The procedure will establish a harmonic resonance between the Omnitrix and Omnitrix matrices. My systems will help stabilize the integration, preventing further acceleration while providing a pathway for potential reversal. And the risks to you? Ben asked, already knowing the answer. Acceptable, she stated firmly. My consciousness may temporarily merge with yours during synchronization. Some aspects of my identity could be altered or lost in the process. That's not acceptable, Ben countered. Despite the increasing pain of molecular destabilization. Not at that cost. Eunice placed a hand on his cheek, the gesture intimate despite their audience. It's my choice, Ben. A choice I make freely, something the Chronarch would deny us all. The simple truth of her statement silenced further objection. Choice, free will, stood at the core of what they fought to preserve. To deny her decision would be to embrace the very philosophy they opposed. With painful effort, Ben straightened, facing the synchronization chamber with newfound resolve. Let's do this. As he moved toward the indigo chamber, Kai squeezed his arm once before releasing him. See you on the other side, Tennyson. Elena stepped forward, her professional demeanor momentarily slipping to reveal genuine emotion. Be careful, both of you. Her gaze included Eunice in the admonition, a brief acknowledgement of shared concern transcending romantic complication. Ben and Eunice took their positions in the respective chambers. As the transparent material sealed around them, their eyes met across the short distance separating the units. No words were necessary, their connection had alpha. YS transcended conventional communication. Initiating quantum alignment, Zenith announced, activating the primary sequence. Establishing harmonic resonance between Omnitrix and Omnitrix matrices. Energy began to flow between the chambers, green from Eunice, indigo from Ben, the colors merging where they met to form a spectrum neither had seen before. The sensation was extraordinary, beyond physical description. It wasn't merely energy transfer but something deeper, the fundamental patterns of their beings reaching toward one another, recognizing complementary structures. Neural synchronization commencing, Azimuth reported. Monitoring the process with intense focus. Consciousness alignment at 15%, 30%, 42%. Ben felt Eunice's mind touching his, not as an intrusion, but as a homecoming. Memories flowed between them. Their first meeting, when she existed as the Omnitrix in human form. Moments of connection across years of separate paths, the unique understanding they shared as beings existing at the intersection of humanity and technology. Synchronization at 75%, Zenith announced, her voice seeming to come from an impossible distance. Omnitrix adaptation protocols engaging with Omega matrices. The chaotic patterns beneath Ben's skin began to stabilize, the discordant cycling of alien DNA resolving into harmonious flow once more. Through their mental connection, Eunice's Omnitrix nature provided structure and balance to the Omega protocol's expansive potential. Integration stabilizing at 77%, Azimuth confirmed. Quantum coherence re-establishing across all subsystems. As the synchronization reached completion, Ben experienced a moment of perfect clarity, his consciousness expanded beyond human limitations yet anchored by Eunice's stabilizing presence. He perceived reality in its fullness, seeing beyond conventional dimensions into the quantum fabric underlying all existence. And in that expanded awareness, he glimpsed something terrifying. The Chronarch wasn't merely an entity seeking to impose order. It was the embodiment of inevitability itself, entropy's final answer to the chaotic expansion of possibility. In that moment of cosmic perception, Ben understood that the conflict they faced wasn't simply about preserving their reality, but about the fundamental nature of existence itself. Choice versus certainty, possibility versus inevitability, freedom versus perfection, synchronization complete. Zenith announced as the energy flow between chambers stabilized into a continuous circuit. Neural integration holding at optimal parameters. The transparent chambers opened, allowing Ben and Eunice to step out. Though physically separated once more, something of their connection remained, a harmonic resonance linking their consciousness. SS on a level beyond conventional understanding. How do you feel? Azimuth asked, studying them both with clinical assessment that failed to completely mask genuine concern. Balanced, Ben answered after a moment's introspection. The Omega Protocol continued to flow through his system, alien DNA adapting fluidly beneath his skin, but the chaotic acceleration had ceased. His expanded awareness remained, yet anchored now by structures borrowed from Eunice's Omnitrix architecture. The synchronization appears successful, Eunice confirmed, her voice carrying subtle harmonics not present before. The integration has stabilized at 77% with enhanced coherence across all subsystems. Elena moved forward, scanning equipment already assessing their conditions. Neural patterns have stabilized in both subjects. Quantum signatures show harmonic alignment. And the pathway for reversal? Kai asked, her focus practical as always. Established, Azimuth confirmed, reviewing the data. The unit, Rick's synchronization has created a quantum-level connection that could theoretically allow complete de-integration of the Omega Protocol, returning the Omnitrix to its standard configuration. Theoretically, Ben noted, catching the qualification. The first thinker nodded grimly. The process would be complex and potentially dangerous for both participants. Eunice stepped closer to Ben, the IR synchronized energies creating subtle harmonics visible only through enhanced perception. A concern for another time. For now, we have a more immediate threat. Before anyone could respond, the Laboratory's emergency systems activated once more. Warning signals flashed across displays as sensors detected massive energy surges throughout the directorate. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, Zenith reported. Alarm evident despite Galvan's stoicism. Pattern indicates coordinated assault. Through expanded awareness, Ben perceived the truth before the sensors confirmed it. It's not an assault. It's a full incursion. The Chronarch is coming through. The laboratory viewports showed the horror unfolding across Galvan Prime. The sky itself seemed to fold inward, reality buckling as something massive began to emerge from the void between dimensions. The crystalline entity they had glimpsed from Earth now appeared in its full terrifying glory, a geometric structure the size of a small moon. Its perfect facets containing glimpses of alternative realities. The convergence approaches, its communication resonated directly in their minds, powerful enough to reach every being on the planet simultaneously. Resistance is futile and counterproductive. Surrender the key and embrace optimization. We need to evacuate immediately, Azimuth stated, activating emergency protocols throughout the directorate. Galvan Prime's defenses cannot withstand a full Chronarch manifestation. Ben stood transfixed by the sight, the synchronized Omega Protocol allowing him to perceive the Chronarch's true nature. It wasn't merely a being from another dimension, it was a conceptual entity, the embodiment of cosmic inevitability given form and purpose. We can't run, he stated with quiet certainty. Not from this. If the Chronarch fully manifests, no reality will be beyond its reach. What are you suggesting? Elena demanded, her practical nature seeking concrete action plans. Ben turned to face them. The alien patterns beneath his skin flowing with newfound purpose as the synchronized protocol responded to his resolve. We take the fight to it. Now, while it's still transitioning between dimensions. Impossible, Zenith objected. The dimensional barrier cannot be breached without the Omega Protocol, Ben finished. Which I now have, enhanced and stabilized by the synchronization. Eunice studied him with understanding beyond words, their connected consciousness allowing her to perceive his intent. You want to enter the transition space. Confront the Chronarch in the void between dimensions. Quote, where its power is greatest, Azimuth warned. Even with the synchronized protocol, you would be at tremendous disadvantage. But not alone, Kai interjected, holding up the Contemmelia phase inverter. These artifacts were designed specifically to disrupt the Chronarch's dimensional manipulation. And the nanochips could be reconfigured to generate counter-resonance fields, Elena added. Her tactical mind already formulating strategies. Disrupt its ability to fully manifest. Ben looked between them, Eunice with her synchronized connection to him. Kai with her ancient weapons against cosmic threats, Elena with her practical solutions to impossible problems. Different approaches united by common purpose. This is insanity, Azimuth stated flatly. The synchronized protocol is barely stabilized. Attempting to breach dimensional barriers could collapse the integration entirely. If we do nothing, the Chronarch will fully manifest, Ben countered. And everything, freedom, possibility, choice itself, will end. The first thinker stared at him for a long moment, then sighed with ancient weariness. I created the Omnitrix to foster understanding between species. Never did I imagine it would come to this, a last stand against cosmic inevitability. Not a last stand, Ben corrected. A first strike. Through the viewports, they could see crystalline formations spreading across Galvan Prime's landscape, dimensional anchors securing reality for the Chronarch's full manifestation. Time was running out. What do you need? Azimuth asked, his opposition giving way to pragmatic acceptance. A way to generate a controlled dimensional breach, Ben answered. Something I can direct specifically at the Chronarch's transition point. Zenith moved to a secure console, entering a complex sequence that caused a hidden compartment to open in the laboratory wall. From it, she retrieved a device of elegant Galvan design, a spherical mechanism containing what appeared to be miniature galaxies in motion. The dimensional aperture generator, she explained. Theoretical technology never implemented due to potential reality destabilization. You built it anyway, Azimuth noted with a mixture of disapproval and admiration. I learned from you that some knowledge must be preserved, even if dangerous. Zenith's enormous eyes met his with centuries of unspoken history. I never anticipated a situation dire enough to warrant its use. Ben accepted the device, feeling the synchronized protocol responding to its quantum mechanics. How do I target it? The harmonic resonance between you and Eunice creates a unique quantum signature, Zenith explained. The generator can use that signature to establish a dimensional corridor at only synchronized entities can traverse. Meaning Eunice and I go together, Ben concluded, looking to her for confirmation. She nodded without hesitation. The synchronization requires proximity to maintain stability. Separation across dimensions would collapse both the protocol and the Omnitrix matrix. I'm going too, Kai stated firmly, her tone brooking no argument. The Contemelia Arti. Facts are your only effective weapons against the Chronarch. You need me to operate them. Elena stepped forward, professional assessment weighing potential contributions. The nanochips can't function between dimensions. But I can provide remote support from here. Create interference patterns to disrupt the Chronarch's manifestation, buy you time. Ben looked between them, feeling the weight of the moment. The fate of reality itself rested on decisions made in these critical seconds. Through the synchronized protocol's enhanced perception, he could see potential futures branching from this nexus point, most ending in the Chronarch's victory, a few offering slim hope. Let's do this, he stated, accepting both the responsibility and the necessity of their choices. Elena, coordinate with Azimuth and Zenith on the interference patterns. Kai, bring whatever Contemelia technology might help. Eunice, she met his gaze with perfect understanding, their synchronized consciousness communicating beyond words. I'm with you, always. Outside, the Chronarch's manifestation accelerated, reality buckling under pressure from beyond dimensions. The massive crystalline structure was now halfway into normal space, its perfect geometries rewriting physical laws wherever it touched. The convergence key has been located, its communication resonated through their minds. Surrender is the logical choice. Logic isn't everything, Ben murmured, activating the dimensional aperture generator. The device hummed with power beyond conventional understanding, establishing quantum connection. With the synchronized protocol flowing through him and Eunice. A sphere of swirling energy formed before them, neither solid nor liquid but something beyond conventional states of matter. Within it, they could glimpse the void between dimensions, a space where reality's rules held no sway, where consciousness itself became the only constant. The aperture will remain stable for approximately 20 minutes, Zenith informed them. After that, quantum decay will collapse the corridor. Meaning if we're not back by then. Ben began. You'll be trapped between dimensions, Azimuth finished grimly. Beyond any possibility of rescue. Kai stepped forward, Contemelia artifacts secured in a specialized harness. Then we'd better be efficient. Ben turned to Elena, who was already ishing connections between her nanochip control systems and the Galvan quantum network. Their eyes met briefly, volumes of unspoken feelings passing between them in that moment. Be careful, she said simply. Always am. he replied with a ghost of his old grin. Eunice moved to his side, their synchronized energies creating visible harmonics where they stood in proximity. Together, they faced He-dimensional aperture, a portal to the space between realities where the Chronarch awaited. Ready? He asked. As much as anyone can be, she answered truthfully. With Kai beside them, they stepped forward into the swirling energy. Reality itself seemed to flex around them as conventional physics gave way to the non-laws of interdimensional space. For a breathless moment, they existed everywhere and nowhere. Consciousness the only anchor in a place where matter and energy held no meaning. Then they were through, standing in a space that defied description, facing the true form of the Chronarch in all its terrible perfection. And in that moment, Ben understood that they stood not merely at the boundary between dimensions, but at the threshold of existence itself, where choice and inevitability waged their eternal war. The final battle for reality had begun. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Warriors and Whispers. The void between dimensions defied comprehension. Neither dark nor light, neither empty nor filled. It existed as pure potential, a canvas awaiting reality's brush. Ben, Eunice, and Kai hovered in this non-space, their consciousness the only anchor in a realm where physical laws held no dominion. Before them loomed the Chronarch in its true form, a perfect crystalline structure of impossible geometry, facets reflecting realities that never were and futures that might yet be. Its presence was overwhelming, a conceptual entity given form through sheer cosmic will. The convergence key approaches willingly. Unexpected but efficient. The communication resonated directly in their minds. Bypassing conventional senses. Through the synchronized Omega protocol, Ben perceived layers of meaning beyond the words themselves, the Chronarch's absolute certainty, its utter conviction in the righteousness of its purpose. "We're here to stop you," Ben stated, his voice somehow carrying in a realm where sound couldn't exist. "Your optimization ends now." The Chronarch's crystalline structure shifted, facets realigning in what might have been the equivalent of contemplation. Opposition is illogical. Optimization eliminates suffering, eliminates chaos, provides certainty. Certainty at the cost of choice. Eunice countered, her consciousness synchronized with Ben's, strengthening their shared resistance. Perfection at the expense of possibility. Kai activated, a Contemplalia artifact, a dodecahedron that pulsed with energy beyond conventional physics. "We've stopped you before. The Contemplalia drove you back into the void once. We'll do it again." The Contemplalia failed. Their victory was temporary. Reality continues to fracture. Optimization is inevitable. Ben felt the synchronized protocol responding to the confrontation, alien DNA flowing through his system in new configurations as it adapted to the interdimensional environment. Within his expanded consciousness, he could sense Eunice's stabilizing presence, her Omnitrix architecture providing structure to the Omega protocol's vast potential. "Nothing is inevitable," Ben stated with quiet certainty, drawing on the power flowing through him. "That's what you'll never understand." He reached out, not physically but through the protocol's enhanced capabilities, grasping the quantum structure of the void itself. Energy erupted from him, not the indigo of the Omega protocol alone, but a harmony. Fusion with Eunice's green Omnitrix signature. Where their combined power touched the Chronarch's perfect geometry, facets cracked and destabilized. The entity recoiled, its mental communication fragmenting momentarily. Unexpected configuration. Synchronization detected. Recalculating approach. Kai seized the advantage, activating multiple Contemplalia artifacts simultaneously. The ancient technology responded to her with practiced familiarity, as if recognizing a kindred spirit in the human archaeologist. Waves of energy unlike anything in conventional physics erupted from the devices, king the Chronarch at precisely calculated points. Contemplalia remnants detected, insufficient to prevent optimization. With that declaration, the Chronarch's strategy shifted. The damaged facets of its structure separated, forming autonomous units that moved with perfect coordination. Each fragment contained a reflection of the whole, smaller but no less dangerous as they surrounded the three intruders in a precise geometric formation. "They're trying to separate us," Eunice warned, sensing the tactical shift through their synchronized consciousness. "The protocol needs proximity to maintain stability." Ben nodded, drawing on Gravitax's powers to manipulate the quantum gravity of the void, pulling Eunice closer while creating defensive barriers against the approaching fragments. Kai, stay within the gravity field. If they isolate you, already on it, she replied, activating a Contemlia tether that anchored her to their position regardless of spatial manipulation. These artifacts were designed for interdimensional warfare. The Chronarch can't break their connection. The fragments attacked with coordinated precision, each targeting specific weaknesses in their defenses. Where they touched the gravity field, reality itself distorted, conventional physics struggling against the Chronarch's fundamental rewriting of cosmic constants. Ben countered by drawing deeper on the synchronized protocol, accessing hybrid abilities no single alien form could provide. Celestial Sapian reality manipulation merged with Atomix's energy projection, creating shields that existed radially outside conventional dimensions. Clockwork's temporal manipulation combined with Feedback's energy absorption, allowing him to redirect the Chronarch's attacks back upon itself. Through it all, he felt Eunice's consciousness intertwined with his, their synchronized connection allowing instantaneous coordination beyond verbal communication. They moved as one being, complementary aspects of a unified defense. Resistance prolongs suffering. The optimization approaches regardless. The Chronarch fragments intensified their assault, no longer seeking to capture but to neutralize. The Void itself became a weapon as they manipulated dimensional constants, creating pockets where time flowed differently, where gravity inverted, where energy became matter and matter dissolved into pure potential. Kai fought with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime studying her enemy's weaknesses. Each Contemlia artifact activated at exactly the right moment, countering specific aspects of the Chronarch's dimensional manipulation. Where conventional physics failed, ancient technology designed specifically for this conflict prevailed. Yet despite their coordinated defense, the relentless assault took its toll. The dimensional aperture connecting them to normal space began to fluctuate, quantum decay accelerating under the Chronarch's influence. The corridor is destabilizing, Eunice reported, her consciousness monitoring the quantum mechanics of their escape route. We have minutes at most before it collapses completely. Ben assessed their situation with tactical clarity. Enhanced by the protocol's expanded awareness. They couldn't defeat the Chronarch here, in the void where its power was greatest. This had never been about victory, only about buying time, gathering information, testing capabilities. We need to retreat, he decided. Take what we've learned back to normal space. Kai nodded grimly, already reconfiguring her artifacts for defensive coverage. I'll create a disruption field. Give us a path back to the aperture. On my mark, Ben instructed, gathering energy for one final, concentrated assault. Through their synchronized connection, Eunice understood his intent without words, aligning her Omnitrix capabilities to complement his approach. With perfect coordination, they struck. Ben channeled pure evolutionary energy through the Omega protocol while Eunice provided the precise quantum formulas necessary for effective targeting. Kai activated all remaining Contemlia artifacts simultaneously, their ancient power magnified by the synchronized protocol's enhancement. The combined assault struck the Chronarch's central structure, creating a momentary disruption in its perfect geometry. In that instant of vulnerability, Ben grasped the fabric of the void, twisting dimensional constants to propel them toward the fluctuating aperture. You cannot escape inevitability. The Chronarch's communication followed them, resonating with absolute conviction. The convergence approaches. Optimization will occur. Not today, Ben countered as they reached the aperture's shifting boundary. Reality twisted around them as they crossed the threshold between dimensions. Consciousness temporarily fragmenting as they transitioned from the lawless void to conventional space-time. For an eternal instant, Ben perceived all possible realities simultaneously, infinite variations of existence branching from each decision point, countless versions of himself living different lives across the multiverse. Then they were through, materializing. In the Galvan Science Directorate with explosive force as dimensional energies dissipated around them. They collapsed to the floor, the sudden return to physical laws jarring after existence in the void. Azimuth, Zenith, and Elena rushed forward, scientific concern momentarily overriding caution. Scanning equipment activated automatically, assessing their condition after interdimensional transit. Dimensional corridor collapsed immediately behind you, Zenith reported, checking readings with practiced efficiency. Another 30 seconds and you would have been trapped. Elena focused on Ben and Eunice, monitoring the synchronized protocol's stability. Quantum coherence holding at acceptable parameters. Minor fluctuations in the harmonic resonance, but nothing critical. Azimuth studied them with analytical intensity that failed to completely mask his relief. What did you discover? Ben rose shakily to his feet, helping Eunice up beside him. Their synchronized energies created visible harmonics where they touched. Green and indigo light pulsing in perfect rhythm. Through their connected consciousness, he could feel her processing the experience alongside him, both reaching the same conclusions simultaneously. The Chronarch can't be defeated in the void, Ben stated. It exists outside conventional reality. But it can be damaged, slowed, disrupted. The Contemplalia artifacts affect it directly, Kai added. Collecting her depleted devices. They were designed specifically to counter its dimensional manipulation. But most importantly, Eunice continued, her voice carrying subtle harmonics from the synchronization, we discovered the Chronarch's true purpose. It's not merely seeking to impose order, it's attempting to correct what it perceives as fundamental flaws in reality itself. Flaws created by temporal disruption, Ben concluded. Every paradox, every timeline alteration has weakened the fabric of reality. The Chronarch sees these fractures as errors requiring correction. Correction through elimination of free will, Elena observed grimly. A perfect reality with no possibility of deviation. Through the laboratory viewport, they could see the consequences of their brief confrontation. The massive crystalline structure that had been emerging above Galvan Prime was retreating, facets realigning as it withdrew into the void between dimensions. It's pulling back, Kai noted with cautious optimism. The attack worked. Temporarily, Azimuth cautioned. The Chronarch doesn't abandon its purpose. It merely recalculates its approach. Ben felt the truth of this assessment through the protocol's enhanced perception. The Chronarch hadn't retreated in defeat but in strategic reassessment. It had never encountered a synchronized entity before, the combination of Omnitrix and Unitrix creating something beyond its predictive models. We need to prepare, he stated, the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders once more. It's going to try again. With a new strategy. Galvan Prime's defensive systems are insufficient against dimensional incursion, Zenith noted, practical as always. We require time to implement countermeasures based on this new information. Earth, Ben decided after brief consideration. We return to Earth and establish our primary defense there. Elena raised an eyebrow. Earth's technology is centuries behind Galvan capability. Strategically, it's not about technology, Ben interrupted. The Chronarch is drawn to the Omega Protocol, to me. Where I go, it will follow. Better to face it on familiar ground, where we have established resources. Additionally, Eunice added, Earth's quantum signature shows greater resilience against dimensional manipulation. The diversity of LIFE forms creates natural stability in the fabric of local space-time. Azimuth nodded reluctantly. Your reasoning is sound, if unconventional. I will provide what Galvan technology can be safely transported. I need access to your archaeological archives first, Kai interjected. If the Contemplalia left more artifacts on Earth, we need to locate them before returning. Granted, Zenith confirmed. I will assist personally. As preparations for departure began, Ben felt a strange sensation within his expanded consciousness, not pain, but a subtle shift in the synchronized protocol's integration. The alien DNA flowing beneath his skin seemed to resonate differently, patterns cycling in new configurations. Eunice noticed immediately through their synchronized connection. The protocol is adapting to your confrontation with the Chronarch. Integration is deepening in response to dimensional exposure. Is that dangerous? Ben asked quietly, the two of them moving slightly apart from the others. Not immediately, she replied, her scientific assessment precise despite their personal connection. The synchronization is maintaining stability. But the protocol is evolving faster than anticipated. Your consciousness is expanding into new domains. Ben nodded, feeling the truth of her observation. Since returning from the void, his perception had subtly shifted. The thoughts flowing through his mind seemed to include perspectives not entirely his own, alien viewpoints filtering through human understanding. The stars align differently from this angle, observed a voice with Petrosapian precision. Underscore local gravity requires compensation. Underscore noted another with Ariphibian calculation. Underscore temporal constants fluctuate near dimensional breach points. Underscore assessed a third with chronosepian awareness. I'm hearing them, Ben whispered, both awed and unsettled by the development. The alien consciousnesses within the Omnitrix. Not clearly, but impressions, thoughts, perspectives. Eunice studied him with scientific fascination tempered by personal concern. The synchronized protocol must be establishing deeper neural connections than anticipated. You're not just accessing T-air DNA but aspects of their cognitive patterns. Is this supposed to happen? Unknown, she admitted. The Omega protocol was theoretical until you activated it. We're in uncharted territory. Their private conversation was interrupted as Elena approached, datapad in hand. Transport arrangements confirmed. The Plumber flagship will be ready for departure in 2 hours. Her dark eyes asked them both with scientific precision that didn't quite mask deeper concerns. Integration status. Stable but evolving, Eunice reported professionally, setting aside personal considerations. Quote, the void exposure accelerated certain neural pathways. Ben is experiencing increased cognitive resonance with the alien DNA templates. Elena's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. That wasn't projected in the theoretical models. Very little of this follows theoretical models, Ben noted, managing a smile despite the gravity of the situation. We're improvising. Some aspects more than others, Elena observed, her gaze shifting between them meaningfully. The subtext wasn't lost on either Ben or Eunice. The synchronization had created a connection between them beyond professional collaboration or even romantic attachment, a literal sharing of consciousness that excluded others by its very nature. For someone like Elena, who valued precision and control, such an undefined relata on-ship presented both scientific and personal challenges. The synchronization is purely functional, Eunice stated, addressing the unspoken concern. A necessary measure to stabilize the protocol. Of course, Elena replied, her tone neutral despite the subtle tension in her posture. I've prepared additional monitoring equipment for the journey to Earth. Your neural patterns should be observed continuously given these new developments. As she departed to complete preparations, Ben felt the complex emotional currents flowing beneath their professional interaction. The situation was unprecedented in every respect. Not just the cosmic threat they faced, but the personal entanglements evolving alongside it. This is getting complicated, he observed quietly. Complicated is one word for it, Eunice agreed. A hint of dry humor breaking through her scientific demeanor. Female interpersonal dynamics follow predictable aggression patterns, noted a voice with apoplexian bluntness. Chemical signatures indicate territorial behavior, observed another with necrophrygian detachment. Ben suppressed a startled laugh at these alien observations filtering through his consciousness. The situation was serious, potentially universe-threatening, yet the alien perspectives provided unexpected moments of clarity, seeing human behavior through decidedly non-human viewpoints. Something amusing? Eunice asked, catching his expression. Just getting commentary from the peanut gallery, he explained. Turns out alien species have opinions about romantic triangles too. Her smile held genuine warmth despite the crisis surrounding them. I can only imagine what they're saying. Trust me, you don't want to know what Wrath thinks about this situation. Their shared moment of levity provided a brief respite from cosmic concerns, a reminder of the human connections at stake in their struggle against the Chronarch's cold perfection. Choice, possibility, complexity, these were very things the entity sought to eliminate in its quest for optimization. As preparations for departure continued around them, Ben felt the weight of those connections, to Eunice through their synchronized consciousness, to Elena through their complex history, to Kai through possibilities not fully explored. Each represented something the Chronarch could never comprehend, the beautiful uncertainty of human relationships. With all their messy complications and unexpected developments, something worth fighting for, beyond abstract concepts of free will and cosmic balance. Purpose provides clarity. Observed a voice with Galvan precision. Attachment provides motivation. For once, Ben found himself in complete agreement with the alien perspective flowing through his consciousness. Whatever he was becoming through the Omega Protocol's integration, he remained fundamentally human in the things that mattered most. The Plumber flagship Resolute emerged from hyperspace in Earth's solar system. Its quantum engines powering down as it entered standard propulsion mode. From the command deck, Ben watched his home planet grow larger in the viewscreen, the blue-green sphere taking on new significance when viewed through the protocol's enhanced perception. Beautiful, Kai murmured beside him, her expression reflecting genuine appreciation despite their dire mission. You forge. Gee, how remarkable it is until you see it from this perspective. Ben nodded, seeing Earth not just with human eyes but through the multiple perspectives flowing through his consciousness. The petrosap ion in him appreciated the crystalline structures of polar ice caps. The pyronite perceived thermal patterns of oceanic currents. The Galvan analyzed atmospheric composition with mathematical precision. Earth's quantum signature remains stable, Eunice reported from a nearby console, monitoring dimensional readings. No signs of chronarch activity in the local system. Yet, Elena added pragmatically, completing final preparations for their arrival. Based on previous patterns, we have perhaps 48 hours before it recalculates its approach and attempts another incursion. Ben turned from the viewscreen, addressing the assembled team that had formed around this unprecedented threat. Azimuth and Zenith had remained on Galvan Prime to coordinate technological countermeasures, but Kai had joined them with her Contemelia artifacts, and Elena's expertise with the nanochips provided unique tactical advantages. At the center stood Eunice, her synchronized connection to Ben creating the foundation for their defense against cosmic inevitability. We need to establish a primary defense perimeter, Ben stated, the tactical aspects of various alien perspectives informing his strategy. The previous incursion targeted Bellwood specifically, the original site of the Omnitrix's arrival on Earth. The dimensional fabric there is already weakened from years of alien activity. The Plumber's Avenue maintained a quarantine zone around those coordinates since the first breach, Elena confirmed. Magister Tennyson has been overseeing preliminary defenses based on the data we transmitted from Galvan Prime. My grandfather's involved. Ben hadn't considered this obvious development, too focused on cosmic concerns to think of personal connections waiting on Earth. Does he know about? He gestured to his altered state. The alien patterns flowing beneath his skin. He knows the essentials, Elena replied. Though seeing it firsthand will be different. Ben nodded, accepting this additional complication. His relationship with Max Tennyson had evolved over the years from grandfather and grandson to something approaching professional equals, but this transformation would test even their established understanding. We should contact Gwen as well, he decided after brief consideration. Her anodite abilities might provide additional insight into the energy manipulations the Chronarch employs. Already attempted, Elena informed him. She's off-world with Kevin, diplomatic mission to the anodite homeworld. Message sent, but transit time makes immediate response unlikely. Tactical redundancy compromised. Noted a voice with Tetraman strategic assessment. Anodite energy manipulation would provide effective countermeasure options. Agreed another with Galvan analytical precision. Ben acknowledged both the external situation and the alien perspectives flowing through his consciousness. Adaptation had always been his greatest strength, working with available resources rather than lamenting absent ones. We proceed with what we have, he stated with quiet confidence. Establish the defense perimeter, analyze the dimensional weak points, prepare countermeasures based on what we learned in the void. As the Resolute entered Earth orbit, preliminary reports began arriving from the surface. Plumber facilities worldwide had been placed on high alert, defensive. Systems calibrated specifically for dimensional incursion based on data from the Galvan encounter. Max Tennyson had consolidated Earth's most advanced alien technology at the Bellwood facility, creating a scientific task force dedicated to understanding and countering the Chronarch threat. Incoming transmission from Plumber headquarters, the communications officer announced. Priority Alpha. The view screen activated, displaying not Max Tennyson as expected, but a familiar red-skinned figure with 4 arms and a warrior's bearing. Luma Red Wind, princess of the Tetraman Empire, regarded him with an expression that combined military assessment and personal interest. Ambassador Tennyson, she greeted formally, though her eyes conveyed recognition beyond professional courtesy. The Tramond Empire has answered Earth's call for assistance. Our battle fleet awaits your tactical instruction. Ben blinked in surprise, not having anticipated this development. Princess Luma, I wasn't aware Earth had requested Tetraman military support. They didn't, she replied with a smile that contained both warmth and predatory satisfaction. I did, as is my right when my betrothed faces significant threat. The silence that followed this declaration was profound. Ben felt three distinct female gazes turn toward him with varying expressions of surprise and calculation. Cultural Ms. Understanding requires diplomatic resolution. Suggested a voice with hybrid formality. Tetraman mating customs supersede conventional diplomatic protocols. Countered another with anthropological detachment. Multiple claiming behaviors detected. Territorial conflict imminent. Observed a third with necrophrygian precision. Betrothed. Kai finally broke the silence, her tone carefully neutral despite the obvious question. Ben cleared his throat awkwardly. There was a cultural misunderstanding several years ago. According to Tetraman tradition, I defeated Luma in ceremonial combat, which technically constituted a marriage proposal, which I accepted, Luma confirmed proudly. The 7-year waiting period concludes next month. Fortuitous timing considering current circumstances. Through their synchronized connection, Ben could feel Eunice's scientific curiosity mixing with more personal reactions. Alina's expression remained professionally neutral, though her posture had subtly tensed. Kai's raised eyebrow spoke volumes about her reassessment of the situation's complexity. Princess Luma, Ben addressed the Tetraman leader with diplomatic precision, your assistance is greatly appreciated. The tactical advantage of Tetraman forces cannot be overstated. However, regarding personal matters, we will discuss our upcoming union after the current crisis is resolved. Luma interrupted with practical efficiency. The battle fleet has established orbital positions as instructed by Magister Tennyson. I will meet your team at Plummer headquarters to coordinate ground defenses. Before Ben could clarify further, the transmission ended. The command deck remained silent for several seconds as the implications settled upon them. Well, Kai finally remarked. That adds an interesting dimension to our defensive preparations. The Tetraman battle fleet provides significant tactical advantage, Elena acknowledged professionally, though her tone carried subtle undertones. Their weapons systems have been modified specifically for interdimensional threats following the Incursine expansion conflicts. And their princess provides significant personal complication. Eunice added with scientific detachment that didn't quite mask her interest in Ben's response. Ben sighed, feeling the weight of past decisions colliding with present crisis. The betrothal situation is complicated. I've attempted to explain Earth customs regarding consent and mutual agreement, but Tetraman tradition is rather inflexible on certain points. Particularly and the princess in question appears quite committed to the arrangement, Kai observed with surprising amusement. You always did attract the interesting ones, Tennyson. Before Ben could respond to this assessment, the ship's sensors detected unusual energy readings from Earth's surface. Elena moved immediately to the monitoring station, her expression shifting from personal concern to professional focus. Quantum fluctuations detected in the Bellwood quarantine zone, she reported. Pattern suggests preliminary dimensional testing, similar to what preceded the Galvan incursion. It's starting again, Ben stated. All personal complications immediately set aside. The Chronarch is probing Earth's defenses, looking for weaknesses. Eunice joined Elena at the monitoring station, their scientific expertise temporarily overriding any personal tension. The fluctuations are more precise than previous patterns. It's learning, adapting to our countermeasures. Prepare for immediate deployment, Ben instructed. The tactical perspectives of multiple alien species flowing through his consciousness, informing strategy with inhuman precision. We need boots on the ground before these probes develop into full incursion points. Quote, as the Resolute began its descent toward Earth, Ben felt the synchronized protocol shifting within him, responding to the approaching confrontation. The NDNA flowing beneath his skin cycled more rapidly, configurations adapting in anticipation of combat. Within his expanded consciousness, the whispers of alien perspectives grew stronger, more distant. no longer merely impressions but increasingly articulate viewpoints. Dimensional breach follows predictable expansion patterns. Observed a voice with Galvan analytical precision. Counter resona. NCE field deployment at calculated coordinates would disrupt formation. Tetraman battle formations provide optimal coverage when arranged in pentagonal defense grid. Suggested another with military tactical assessment. The princess still considers you her mate. Noted a third with apoplexy and bluntness. This will complicate unit cohesion during combat operations. This last observation, so practical yet so personal, reminded Ben of the complex reality they faced. The Chronarch sought to eliminate such complications, to replace the messy, unpredictable nature of free will with cold, perfect certainty. Yet those very complications, those human entanglements, provided purpose beyond abstract cosmic balance. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Ben renewed his determination. Whatever he was becoming through the Omega Protocol's integration, whatever cosmic responsibility rested upon his shoulders, he would fight not just for abstract concepts of free will and possibility, but for the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of human connection, with all its unexpected developments and unresolved tensions. Purpose clarified. The alien voices agreed in rare unanimity. Mission parameters accepted. Plumber headquarters beneath Bellwood had transformed since Ben's departure. What had been a standard monitoring facility now resembled a fortified command center, alien tech. HNO from a dozen worlds integrated into Earth's most advanced systems. The central chamber buzzed with activity as specialists from multiple species coordinated defense preparations against an enemy few could comprehend. Max Tennyson stood at the command console, his weathered features set in determined concentration as he studied dimensional scanning readouts. Despite years in administrative roles, the former plumber operative maintained the bearing of a field agent, ready for action despite his age. When Ben, Eunice, Kai, and Elena entered, Max's expression shifted from professional fawk to momentary shock as he took in his grandson's transformed appearance. The alien patterns flowing beneath Ben's skin, the subtle glow of the synchronized protocol's energy, the fundamental alterate ion in his quantum signature, all registered in the experienced plumber's assessment. Ben, he greeted simply, years of facing the extraordinary allowing him to move past initial surprise with remarkable speed. The reports didn't quite capture the extent of the changes. "It's still me, Grandpa," Ben assured him, stepping forward to grasp the older man's hand. "Just with some upgrades." Max studied him with the experienced eye of someone who had witnessed countless alien phenomena, his concern evident beneath professional composure. "The Omega Protocol, Azimuth mentioned it once, years ago. Said it was a theoretical failsafe he hoped would never be needed. Theory has become necessity," Eunice stated, moving to stand beside Ben, their synchronized energies creating visible harmonics where they were in proximity. "The Chronarch represents an existential threat beyond conventional defense capabilities." Max's gaze shifted between them, noting the connection with a veteran operative's perceptiveness. "And the synchronization, stabilization measure," Elena explained clinically, already moving to interface her equipment with the plumber systems. "The Omnitrix matrix provides structural support to prevent uncontrolled integration acceleration." As they briefed Max on the encounters with the Chronarch and the insights gained from the void between dimensions, Ben felt the familiar comfort of the plumber facility warring with his new perception of it. Through the protocol's enhanced awareness, he could see the quantum structure of the installation, the dimensional reinforcement fields, the temporal stabilization grid, the energy patterns of various alien technologies working in concert. And beneath it all, he perceived something more concerning: microscopic fractures in local space-time. Legacy damage from years of alien activity centered around the Omnitrix. Bellwood had always been a hotspot for extraterrestrial encounters, and that consistent dimensional stress had weakened reality's fabric in ways invisible to conventional sensors. "The dimensional stability is worse than the readings indicate," he interrupted the technical briefing, drawing everyone's attention. "There are micro-fractures throughout the local space-time continuum. Legacy damage from years of alien incursions." Max's expression tightened. "Our sensors aren't detecting anything beyond standard parameters." Ben's perception has been enhanced by the protocol, Eunice explained. He can directly observe quantum-level reality fluctuations. And they're not good, Ben continued. He Chronarch isn't choosing Bellwood randomly. This location is already compromised, easier to breach than virtually anywhere else on Earth. Before Max could respond to this assessment, the facility doors opened to admit Luma Red Wind. The Tetraman Princess entered with military precision, forearms moving in perfect coordination as she assessed the command center with a warrior's practiced eye. Her traditional armor had been augmented with specialized technology clearly designed for interdimensional combat. Magister Tennyson, preparations are, she stopped abruptly upon seeing Ben, her F.R. eyes widening as she took in his transformed appearance. Beloved, what has happened to you? Ben winced slightly at the endearment, aware of the complex interpersonal dynamics it introduced to an already complicated situation. Princess Luma, thank you for bringing the battle fleet. Your assistance is invaluable. Luma approached, studying the alien patterns flowing beneath his skin with fascination rather than repulsion. You have undergone warrior enhancement. Most impressive. Her gaze shifted to Eunice, standing close beside him, their synchronized energies creating visible connection. And this is Eunice. Ben introduced with careful neutrality. She's assisting with stabilizing my enhancement. The Tetraman Princess assessed Eunice with the calculating gaze of Somio. Nay, accustomed to evaluating both allies and potential rivals. I see. A technological symbiosis. Her attention shifted to Kai and Elena, noting their proximity to Ben with equal assessment. You have assembled a formidable team. As expected of my chosen mate. Before the situation could become more awkward, alarm systems activated throughout the facility. Dimensional sensors detected energy spics at multiple locations throughout the quarantine zone, the pattern matching known signatures of Chronarch probing tactics. It's starting, Elena reported, analyzing incoming data with practiced efficiency. 7 distinct dimensional fluctuation points, forming a precise heptagonal pattern around the facility. Geometric formation suggests coordinated breach attempt, Eunice observed, the synchronized protocol allowing her to perceive patterns invisible to conventional analysis. They're attempting to create a dimensional cage around the entire installation. A trap, Ben concluded, tactical perspectives of multiple alien species flowing through his consciousness, providing strategic assessment beyond human capability. They're not trying to break in, they're trying to cut us off from the rest of reality. Max activated the facility's emergency protocols with the calm efficiency of a veteran operative. All personnel to designated defense positions. Activate quantum stabilization fields at maximum capacity. Luma immediately moved to a tactical station, coordinating with her battle fleet in orbit. Tetraman warships repositioning for optimal coverage. Ground forces deploying to reinforce perimeter as instructed. Kai unpacked her Contemmelia artifacts, the ancient technology activating with soft blue luminescence. These should disrupt their dimensional manipulation, but they have limited range. We need to position them at each fluctuation point. I'll coordinate deployment teams, Elena stated, already organizing plumber units through her command interface. The nanochips can provide real-time monitoring of dimensional stability at each location. As the facility mobilized for defense, Ben felt the synchronized protocol responding to the imminent threat. The alien DNA flowing beneath his skin cycled more rapidly, configurations shifting into combat readiness. Within his expanded consciousness, the alien perspectives became more focused, tactical assessments flowing within human precision. Heptagonal formation indicates specific dimensional harmonic targeting, observed a voice with Galvan analytical understanding. Counter harmonic deployment, chi required at precise geometric counterpoints. Standard defensive positions insufficient against multidimensional assault, noted another with military tactical assessment. Recommend asymmetric response pattern to disrupt enemy coordination. We need to disrupt their formation before it stabilizes, Ben stated, integrating the alien tactical perspectives with his own strategic understanding. Once the dimensional cage is fully formed, breaking out will be significantly more difficult than preventing its completion. Agreed, Max confirmed, but our sensors can barely track the fluctuation points. They shift position every 47 seconds, making targeted countermeasures challenging. I can track them, Ben stated with quiet certainty, the protocol's enhanced perception allowing him to see what conventional sensors could not. The synchronized protocol lets me perceive the dimensional manipulation directly. That places you at unacceptable risk, Luma objected immediately, her T1 combining military assessment with personal concern. As tactical commander, your position should remain secure within the command center. As the only one who can perceive the threat directly, my position needs to be where I can do the most good, Ben countered firmly. Eunice comes with me. The synchronization requires proximity to maintain stability. I'll accompany you as well, Kai stated, gathering her Contemplalia artifacts. These weapons need to be precisely positioned to maximize effectiveness. Luma's four eyes narrowed slightly, assessing the tactical reasoning while clearly noting the personal dynamics at play. After a moment, she nodded sharply. Logical deployment. I will coordinate perimeter defense and provide combat support as needed. Elena maintained professional focus, though her brief glance at Ben conveyed more personal concerns. The nanochips will establish a communication network independent of conventional signals. Dimensional disruption typically interferes with standard transmission methods. As preparations finalized around them, Eunice moved closer to Ben, their synchronized connection allowing private communication beyond verbal exchange. Through their shared consciousness, he felt her scientific assessment of the situation tempered by personal concern. The protocol is responding to the threat stimulus, she observed. Integration is fluctuating between 76% and 79% as it prepares combat configurations. Is that dangerous? Ben asked through their mental link. Not immediately, she replied with scientific precision. The synchronization is maintaining overall stability. But prolonged combat conditions could accelerate integration beyond current parameters. Ben accepted this assessment with the calm resolve of someone who had faced world-ending threats before. The risks were significant but unavoidable. The alternative was surrendering reality itself to the Chronarch's cold perfection. As they prepared to move out, Max approached, his expression conveying the complex mix of professional respect and grandfather's concern that had defined their relationship for years. Be careful out there, he said simply. Whatever that thing is doing to reality, it doesn't change what matters most. Ben nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind the straightforward words. No matter what the Omega Protocol was transforming him into, no matter what cosmic responsibility rested on his shoulders, the human connections remained his anchor. Family, friends, the complicated web of relationships that defined Ben Tennyson beyond the wielder of the Omnitrix. I'll remember, he promised. The Bellwood quarantine zone stretched for 2 miles in every direction from the site of the original dimensional breach. Once a typical suburban area, it now stood empty of civilian presence, buildings repurposed as defensive positions, streets converted to tactical deployment zones. Plumber agents and Tetraman warriors established shed perimeter defenses at strategic points, their weapons calibrated specifically for interdimensional threats based on data from previous encounters. Ben, Eunice, and Kai moved through this militarized landscape with purpose. Following the quantum disturbances only Ben could perceive through the protocol's enhanced awareness. Above them, the sky itself seemed to shimmer with unnatural energy, reality bending under pressure from outside normal space-time. The fluctuation points are stabilizing, Ben reported, tracking the dimensional disruptions through senses beyond human capability. You're establishing fixed positions rather than shifting. That's not good. They're learning, Kai observed grimly, readying her Contemplalia artifacts for deployment. Adapting to our countermeasures. Through the nanochip communication network, Elena's voice reached them with perfect clarity despite the dimensional interference. Sensors are detecting increased quantum particle density at all 7 locations. Preliminary breach imminent. We need to disrupt the pattern before it completes, Ben stated, the tactical perspectives flowing through his consciousness providing inhuman strategic assessment. If all 7 points activate simultaneously, the dimensional cage will form instantly. The artifacts need to be positioned at equidistant points from each fluctuation, Kai explained, studying the alien technology with practiced familiarity. Create a counter-geometric pattern to destabilize their formation. Through their synchronized connection, Eunice performed complex quantum calculations with Galvan-level precision. Optimal deployment coordinates identified. The counter pattern will require perfect geometric alignment to maximize disruptive effect. As they approached the first fluctuation point, Ben perceived the reality distortion intensifying. The fabric of space-time rippled visibly, conventional physics struggling against forces from beyond dimensional boundaries. Through the protocol's enhanced awareness, he could see the quantum structure being systematically rewritten, reality itself reprogrammed according to the Chronarch's perfect design. Kai activated the first Contemplalia artifact, the ancient technology responding to her practiced handling with blue-white luminescence. When positioned at the calculated coordinates, it emitted a counter-resonance field that stabilized local space-time, reinforcing conventional physical laws against external manipulation. 1 down, 6 to go, she reported with professional satisfaction. They moved quickly to the next location, aware that time worked against them. With each passing minute, the Chronarch's dimensional manipulation grew stronger, the pattern more difficult to disrupt. Through the nanochip network, they received updates from the defensive perimeter, plumber agents and Tetraman warriors positioned according to Ben's strategic assessment, weapons ready against an enemy few could comprehend. As they approached the third fluctuation point, reality shuddered around them. The dimensional disruption intensified dramatically, space-time folding inward as something began to emerge from beyond conventional physics. Breach in progress. Alina's warning came through the communication network. Multiple emergence points detected. Dimensional incursion confirmed. Ben felt the synchronized protocol responding to the imminent threat, power surging through his system as alien DNA configurations cycled into combat readiness. Through expanded awareness, he perceived the nature of the emerging entities, crystalline structures of impossible geometry, their perfect symmetry an affront to the chaotic possibility of natural evolution. Extraction units, he identified grimly. More advanced than those we encountered on Galvan Prime. The crystalline entities fully materialized, their geometric forms shifting between dimensions as they oriented toward the three defenders. Unlike the Sen, Tris or extraction units from previous encounters, these beings appeared specifically designed for combat, their impossible angles incorporating weaponized aspects that defied conventional physics. Convergence key located. Containment protocols initiated. Asterisk. The mental communication resonated directly into their consciousness, bypassing conventional senses. Through their synchronized connection, Ben felt Eunice's scientific analysis of the entities overlapping with his tactical assessment, their combined perspective providing comprehensive understanding impossible for either alone. There, trying to establish the dimensional cage, Eunice reported, monitoring quantum fluctuations through enhanced perception. These combat units are tasked with preventing our interference. Then we interfere anyway, Ben stated with quiet determination. Without further discussion, he engaged the combat units directly. The synchronized protocol responded to his intent, alien DNA flowing into combat. Configurations beyond any single transformation he had previously utilized. Diamond Head's crystalline structure merged with NRG's radioactive containment armor, creating a hybrid form capable of withstanding dimensional disruption while generating counter-resonance energy. The crystalline entities attacked with perfect coordination, their weapons manipulating local physics in ways conventional defenses couldn't counter. Where their energy struck, reality itself distorted, matter phase shifting between states, gravity inverting, temporal flow accelerating or decelerating unpredictably. Ben countered by drawing deeper on the synchronized protocol, accessing abilities impossible for any single alien form. Clockwork's temporal manipulation combined with Gravitax's control over gravity, all owing him to stabilize local physics against the Chronarch's disruption. Feedback's energy absorption merged with Atomix's projection capabilities, redirecting the dimensional weapons back upon their wielders. Through it all, he felt Eunice's consciousness intertwined with his, their synchronized connection allowing instantaneous coordination beyond verbal communication. They moved as complementary aspects of a unified defense. Her Omnitrix architecture providing structure to the protocol's vast potential. Kai fought with the precision of someone who had dedicated her life to understanding ancient weapons. Each Contemplalia artifact activated with perfect timing, countering specific aspects of the Chronarch's dimensional manipulation. Where conventional physics failed, technology designed millennia ago for this exact conflict prevailed. The counter pattern is working, she called out, activating the fourth artifact at precisely calculated coordinates. Local space-time is stabilizing. Through the nanochip network, reports arrived from other sectors of the quarantine zone. Luma led Tetraman warriors against crystalline combat units with devastating effectiveness, their forearm. ED fighting style perfectly adapted to multidimensional opponents. Plumber agents deployed specialized containment fields based on Alina's modifications, creating pockets of stabilized reality within the chaos of dimensional conflict. Yet despite their coordinated defense, the Chronarch's incursion intensified. More crystalline entities emerged from fluctuation points that hadn't yet been counteracted. Their perfect geometric formations establishing dimensional anchors throughout the quarantine zone. Resistance extends suffering without altering outcome. Optimization approaches regardless of opposition. Asterisk. The communication resonated through reality itself, no longer directed merely at individual consciousness but at the fundamental structure of local space-time. Through the protocol's enhanced perception, Ben felt the Chronarch's presence growing stronger, no longer merely sending agents but extending its own awareness into conventional reality. "We need to complete the counter pattern," he stated. The tactical perspectives flowing through his consciousness identifying the critical vulnerability in the Chronarch's approach. "If we can activate all 7 artifacts before the dimensional cage forms." A massive surge of energy interrupted his strategic assessment. Reality shuddered as one of the fluctuation points expanded dramatically, conventional physics giving way to a full-dimensional breach. Through this tear in space-time emerged a larger crystalline entity, similar to the one they had confronted in the void, but adapted for manifestation in normal reality. Its ECT geometry contained reflections of countless alternative universes, facets shifting between possibilities as it oriented toward them with terrible purpose. The convergence key will be contained. Resistance is counterproductive to optimal outcome. Asterisk. Ben felt the synchronized protocol responding to this new threat, power surging through his system as integration fluctuated upward. 78%, 79%, pushing toward 80% as his body adapted to combat an entity beyond conventional understanding. The alien DNA flowing beneath his skin cycled more rapidly, configurations shifting into increasingly complex hybrid forms. Within his expanded consciousness, the alien perspectives grew stronger, more distinct, no longer merely tactical suggestions but fully articulated viewpoints informing his strategy with inhuman precision. Standard combat approaches insufficient against multidimensional entity. Assessed a voice with Galvan analytical understanding. Recommend targeting dimensional anchor points rather than manifestation shell. Entity maintains connection to void through quantum entanglement. Observed another with chronosapian temporal awareness. Disrupting entanglement would force retreat to native dimensional state. Ben integrated these perspectives with his own tactical understanding, the synchronized protocol translating conceptual strategy into practical capability. Through their connected consciousness, Eunice grasped his intent immediately, aligning her Omnitrix capabilities to complement his approach. "Kai," he called out, "I need all remaining artifacts activated simultaneously. Create a resonance cascade effect." She nodded sharply, already reconfiguring the ancient technology for synchronized activation. "The counter pattern isn't complete. Without all 7 points, we target what's already here instead of preventing what's coming," Ben explained, the tactical assessment flowing through him with inhuman clarity. "Force them to retreat rather than trying to stop their arrival." As Kai prepared the remaining artifacts, Ben and Eunice confronted the crystalline entity directly. Through their synchronized connection, they coordinated a multi-layered assault impossible for either alone. Ben channeled pure evolutionary energy through the Omega Protocol while Eunice provided the precise quantum formulas necessary for effective targeting. The combined act struck the entity at its dimensional anchor points, the quantum connections maintaining its existence in conventional reality. Where their energy touched its perfect geometry, facets cracked and destabilized. The impossible angles momentarily resolving into conventional physics before reforming. Analysis complete. Adaptation required. Containment strategy recalculating. The entity shifted its approach. No longer attempting direct combat but focusing entirely on completing the dimensional cage. Its crystalline structure expanded, extending filaments of impossible geometry toward the remaining fluctuation points. Accelerating the breach formation process. It's forcing the cage, Eunice warned, monitoring quantum fluctuations through enhanced perception. Bypassing normal manifestation sequence, Ben felt the reality distortion intensifying around them as the Chronarch entity manipulated dimensional constants directly. Space-time folded inward, conventional physics giving way to rules from beyond normal reality. They were being isolated, cut off from the rest of the universe in a pocket dimension where the Chronarch's power would be absolute. Now, Kai, he shouted, channeling energy to reinforce her position against the increasing dimensional pressure. With perfect timing, she activated all remaining Contemplalia artifacts simultaneously. The ancient technology responded with blinding intensity. Counter-resonance fields expanding to intersect with the forming dimensional cage. Where they touched the Chronarch's perfect geometry, disruption cascaded through the quantum structure, shattering the precise mathematical harmony required for stable manifestation. Reality shuddered as opposing forces clashed on a fundamental level. The dimensional cage faltered, its RFECT symmetry disrupted by the counter-resonance fields. The crystalline entity recoiled as its connection points destabilized, facets cracking under pressure from technology designed specifically to counter its dimensional manipulation. Unexpected configuration. CONTEMELIA technology detected. Recalculating approach. Asterisk. Through the synchronized protocol's enhanced perception, Ben sensed the entity's strategy shifting once more. Rather than continuing its increasingly futile attempt to establish the dimensional cage, it focused its remaining power directly on him, the convergence key it had sought from the beginning. Crystalline filaments extended with impossible speed, bypassing conventional space to strike directly at Ben's quantum signature. Where they touched, the protocol's integrate ion fluctuated wildly, accelerating in some systems while regressing in others. The careful balance established through synchronization threatened with catastrophic disruption. Pain unlike anything he had experienced tore through him as the entity attempted to hijack the protocol directly, using its connection to rewrite the integration parameters according to its own perfect design. Through their synchronized consciousness, he felt Eunice fighting alongside him, her Omnitrix architecture providing stability against the chaotic fluctuations. Ben. Kai's voice seemed to come from an impossible distance as reality distorted around them. The artifacts are overloading. They can't maintain counter-resonance much longer. Through the pain and dimensional chaos, Ben made a decision. Instead of fighting the entity's connection, he embraced it, allowing the crystalline filaments deeper access to the protocol while simultaneously redirecting the energy flow. Rather than the entity controlling the protocol, he used the connection to access the entity's own dimensional manipulation capabilities. The synchronized protocol responded to this desperate strategy, integration surging toward 82%. New neural pathways formed to accommodate the expanded capability. Power beyond anything he had previously channeled flowed through him, alien DNA configurations cycling into forms that defied conventional classification. With Eunice's consciousness stabilizing his own through their synchronized connection, Ben grasped the quantum structure of reality itself. Not merely perceiving dimensional constants but actively manipulating them, rewriting local physics according to his will rather than the Chronarch's design. The crystalline entity recoiled as its own capabilities were turned against it. Its perfect geometry destabilized, facets shattering as it lost coherence with conventional reality. The dimensional breaches began to collapse, fluctuation points returning to normal space-time. The counter-resonance fields reasserted conventional physics. Protocol integration exceeding predicted parameters. Convergence potential accelerating. Fascinating. With that final communication, the entity retreated. Its shattered form dissolved into quantum particles as it withdrew from conventional reality, forced back into the void between dimensions. Around them, the remaining crystalline combat units followed, their perfect coordination fragmenting as they lost connection to their commanding presence. Within moments, the quarantine zone returned to relative normalcy. Dimensional sensors showed all breach points closed, reality stabilizing as conventional physics reasserted dominance over local space-time. Through the nanochip network, reports arrived from throughout the defensive perimeter. The incursion had been repelled, the Chronarch's forces driven back across all sectors. Victory, for the moment. Yet Ben felt no triumph as the pain of accelerated integration washed through him. The protocol had pushed beyond established parameters during the conflict, new capabilities emerging at the cost of increased symbiosis with the alien DNA flowing through his system. He staggered, the strain of dimensional manipulation taking its toll despite the protocol's enhanced recuperative abilities. Eunice caught him before he could fall, their synchronized energies creating visible harmonics where they touched. Integration at 82%, she reported, scientific concern evident beneath personal connection. Neural pathways expanding beyond projected models. Kai rushed to join them. The depleted Contemlia artifacts dim in her hands. Is he all right? That was. I've never seen anything like what you just did. Before Ben could respond, Luma arrived with a contingent of Tetraman warriors. The princess assessed the situation with a warrior's practiced eye, noting Ben's condition with both tactical and personal concern. The perimeter is secure, she reported officially. Then softened her tone as she addressed Ben directly. That was most impressive, beloved. Your warrior enhancement exceeds anything in Tetraman combat records. Through the nanochip network, Ellen A's voice reached them with perfect clarity despite the lingering dimensional interference. All breach points neutralized, quantum stability returning to acceptable parameters across all sectors. A brief pause, then more personally, Ben. Your biometric readings are fluctuating beyond established baselines. You need immediate medical assessment. The multiple concerns from different perspectives, scientific, tactical, personal, reflected the complex reality they faced. The Chronarch had been driven back once more, but at significant cost. The protocol's accelerated integration pushed Ben further beyond human limitations. The alien DNA flowing through him establishing neural pathways that changed not just his capabilities but his fundamental perception of reality. Within his expanded consciousness, the alien perspectives had grown more pronounced, more articulate, distinct viewpoints that informed his understanding in ways both illuminating and unsettling. Combat performance exceeded tactical projections. Observed a voice with military precision. Dimensional manipulation capabilities now rival Chronarch parametric control. Integration acceleration concerning. Countered another with scientific assessment. Neural pathway expansion approaching irreversibility threshold. The females demonstrate competing territorial behaviors despite cooperative tactical framework. Not. A third with anthropological detachment. Complex social dynamics require diplomatic resolution to maintain unit cohesion. This last observation, so practical yet so personal, reminded Ben of they fought for against the Chronarch's cold perfection. Not abstract concepts of free will and cosmic balance, but the messy, complicated reality of human connection, with all its tensions and unresolved dynamics. Its unexpected developments and challenging choices. Let's head back to headquarters, he suggested, finding his voice despite the lingering pain of accelerated integration. We need to analyze what happened and prepare for their next approach. They will return, Luma stated with a warrior's certainty. This was merely a tactical withdrawal, not a strategic defeat. Agreed, Kai concurred, studying her depleted artifacts with professional assessment. They're learning, adapting to our countermeasures faster than anticipated. Through their synchronized connection, Ben felt Eunice's deeper concern, not just for the cosmic threat they faced, but for what the protocol's acceleration meant for his fundamental identity. As integration progressed beyond 80%, the distinctity on between Ben Tennyson and the alien DNA flowing through him became increasingly blurred, human consciousness expanding into domains never meant for such inhabitation. Yet despite this existential uncertainty, the immediate reality anchored him. The women surrounding him, each with distinct perspective and personal connection, represented what the Chronarch could never comprehend, the beautiful uncertainty of human relationships. With all their complex emotions and unpredictable developments. As they made their way back through the quarantine zone, Ben felt the weight of dual responsibilities. Cosmic defender against an entity beyond comprehension, and human being connected to others through bonds of affection, respect, and shared purpose. The Chronarch saw such connections as inefficient. Complications to be eliminated in the name of perfect optimization. Ben saw them as exactly what made reality worth defending, in all its messy, complicated, wonderful potential. Purpose confirmed. The alien voices agreed within his expanded consciousness. Mission parameters accepted. For now, That would have to be enough. Chapter 3 end. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.